So across from here, there's sitting Mark Kagach, and essentially what he tried was to get a firm grip and understanding of reality. And to do this, he read the two books, Beginning of Infinity and Fabric of Reality, of the quantum physicist David Deutsch. And from the allocated time that was first 2 weeks, it grew to like full 4 months of every day, 8 hours at least research, full on, like reading those books, like going deep into every single chapter and every little idea, going not only staying on those books, but also like going outside, like getting as much information as possible. He wrote like 2 really good summaries about both of the books. And what we're going to do now in this podcast is that Mark is going to explain like what he learned, like what are the most important learnings that he took away from those 4 months of hardcore research. And like on the side, we're also going to go into discussions and just going to explore the ideas of David Deutsch, what we think about them, and just give a quick, brief overview about what you learned about like all the most important stuff that came out of those 4 months. Plus some discussions.
Side debate.
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay, so like, I'll talk about the general ideas from first Fabric of Reality, just main physics David protects. Main physics that protects from Fabric of Reality and then Beginning of Infinity. And then generally we'll have 4 main topics. We'll talk about epistemology, quantum physics, evolution, computation, and evolution. And then there will be a bunch of side shit like politics and so on, how it all applies to it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, brief overview of the main thesis for Fabric of Reality. Basically, David wanted to understand the world as a kid, and he wanted to know whether he can understand everything that is understood by humanity as just a single person during his lifetime.
For people who don't understand, David Deutsch, quite famous quantum physicist.
Yes.
That's enough. Yes.
Yeah, he won like every prize you can think of. He's a father of quantum computation, worked closely with Richard Feynman to make it happen. Right, so quantum physics plus computers.
Quite high.
Yeah, super high bar. He really knows his shit.
Yes.
So he wanted to understand where he can understand all that is understood, there's a lot of understanding, by humanity as a single person. The question would be whether the amount of theories we have about the world grows in breadth or in depth. And if it grows, let's say, more in breadth, that would mean the amount of theories we have about the world increases. It's just a small, like a number just increase of them. They explain pretty much about the same level of things, and you would have to study all of them to understand the whole world. And that is basically makes the whole problem intractable, as in you don't have enough energy, time, and just focus in your lifetime to do that. So you're not going to understand everything that is understood by humanity. If the theories, if the amount of theories we create are actually growing more in depth, then some theories explain more than others, then some theories explain so many other theories, so kind of like it's a hierarchy of theories, that you can just need to understand those a few theories, and you actually understand a pool of other theories underneath those theories, right? So in his research, the answer was that indeed we can understand the world. You can understand everything that is understood by humanity so far about the reality.
As one person.
One person during his lifetime. And that because theories grow more in depth, and small thesis he protects that in the long run, because they grow more in depth, the depth will converge into one single theory. So there would be a theory of everything. So this theory of everything means that it explains everything about reality. So it explains literature, ethics, math, and physics all in one. Okay, so this would be kind of our first theory, which would explain everything there is. And we will, of course, update it. It's not our last theory. We'll improve upon it. It has mistakes. But every time we improve upon it, we literally have to change our opinions about all the things because it explains all the things in one.
But we're not there yet. We don't have a theory about everything yet.
Yes, we don't have it. And he specifically protects in his book. During his research for the book, he changed his opinion from. He first thought that this theory of everything would be kind of just about like particle physics, and then he was like, "Whoa, it's not. It's not just about like reductionist things. It's about more things. It will be, not just purely physical." Okay, that's the thesis for Fabric of Reality, and he says, let's find out what are the theories that are actually have the highest depth. And he outlines 4 theories. So if you understand those 4 theories, you kind of understand everything that is understood by humans so far about the reality. He outlines the theories are epistemology, quantum physics, computation, and evolution. And if you take those 4 together interlinked jointly, you get a really good framework how to see the world, how to think about it. It's not reductive. You explain a lot of things. All those framework of theories have a lot of explanatory power. And obviously that's what we're going to kind of majorly talk about. Now that is the thesis, and then he talks and explores those 4 things in his book. So Beginning of Infinity is a book mainly about progress, what it takes to do progress. It, of course, builds up a lot on all of Fabric of Reality and all those 4 theories, but he doesn't kind of name them explicitly. If you read Fabric of Reality, then you obviously understand all of it. And I would highly recommend first reading Fabric of Reality and then doing Beginning of Infinity. Well, to be fair, no, maybe a first few Beginning of Infinity chapters, just like the first 3. Just get the grasp of like, wow, these ideas have really changed my mind. And then see maybe you want to understand more of the underlying things and go and study Fabric of Reality. But the writing in Fabric of Reality is definitely harder to read. Beginning of Infinity is better to read.
Fabric of Reality is his first one?
The first book?
Yeah.
And Beginning of Infinity, second book. Yeah. So in Beginning of Infinity, it basically covers like everything one can think of. There is no really topic which he doesn't explore in Beginning of Infinity. So like it talks from what it takes to create knowledge to how, whether abstractions are real or not, whether there is artificial intelligence and whether it's conscious or not, how will we know it's conscious, about whether like what are infinities, how they really work, about his underlying philosophy, which is optimism, about like what is multiverse and what is quantum physics. Then literally next chapter is about philosophy and how most of physicists had bad philosophy, which led to a bunch of wrong knowledge creation in the field. And then there is politics, there is culture, creativity, ethics, why there is actual objective beauty. So yeah, it covers literally everything you can think of. So yeah, that is kind of the main thesis for Beginning of Infinity would be that we are at the beginning, at the outset of progress, and it is up to us to decide whether the progress will be endless and go on forever or not. We are not destined to progress, nor we are destined to fail. The fate is in our hands, and we decide it. And yeah, he talks about how do we make progress and so on. That's the thesis.
Okay, so how about we just start with the first field? And like we just go through fields one by one, start with epistemology, then quantum physics, computation, evolution.
Yeah, okay. So epistemology. Why it's such an important theory, why it explains so much about reality. So epistemology is about how we create knowledge of things. It's what is knowledge, how we create it, and so on. So you should really think of knowledge very broadly. Knowledge applies to every part of the world you can think of. You want to choose a better partner, that is knowledge. That is something you want to have. If you want to understand which product to buy, this is also knowledge. Some product is better than others, and you should know it. What is, again, laws of physics would also be knowledge, and so on. So knowledge is, take a broad definition of it. A computer program that is successfully running is knowledge. Like the code for ChatGPT is knowledge. Okay. So if you take this very broadly, you're going to already see, oh, that applies pretty much to every part of my life. I can't really think of a part of life where it wouldn't apply. Like in football, having a good strategy and a good tactics game plan is knowledge. And the coach uses, if coach uses good epistemology, he'll arrive at good knowledge. If he doesn't use epistemology, he'll be stuck and won't create new knowledge and won't improve upon his team. So
epistemology is about creating knowledge in the best way possible, or yeah?
Yeah, it's tough. It's about how we create knowledge. I'm not sure if there is like a hierarchy of methods, and some methods are better than others. This is like a active question of research.
But it is about, it's about how we create knowledge.
Yes.
And what you just said, it's like
Yeah,
you need it for essentially everything we do. Like
yes.
no matter, like if it's about choosing your partner, if it's about winning in football, if it's about building your business, like you need knowledge for everything.
Yeah.
And in understanding of epistemology is super useful for that, because then you actually know how to create knowledge, and you don't just do it subconsciously. Like, I think we all humans have a subconscious way of creating. Exactly. Common sense, how we create knowledge. But with an explicit study of epistemology, this can be used to maybe don't do some common mistakes while creating knowledge. Exactly. Don't fall into traps and actually choose a better partner, or win more in football, or make a better business.
Yeah, make a better business. Let's go. But literally, like, you want to raise a child well, that is knowledge. Like, it is everywhere. So I would say I did not expect that, but epistemology is by far the highest leverage thing anyone can think of to study, by far. It might take a while, so you need some guidance here and there, because it's a huge labyrinth to be lost in, but it's all about that. Like, think of decision making is at the end of the day about creating knowledge about which option is better or not, and that's why I see a lot of problems with all the decision making books. I studied them for quite a while because I was like, decision making is a very important skill to have. All your life is based on decisions, some better than others, and all the decision making books, without really studying epistemology, like, they can't really navigate the problems. They're just like, think more, think of more options, think of what your goals really are. And if you first really understand epistemology, then decision-making is just like kind of a derivative part. You're like, of course, this is what you do and this is what you don't do. Okay, so super important field of philosophy, very applicable to everything you can think of. Cool. So we need to start with, like, how do we create knowledge? What is the first step? Right? A big philosophy for 2 centuries was, for thousands of years. Okay. Centuries 100, right?
Centuries 100, yes.
Okay, I promise I know epistemology better than centuries. Okay, so that for 2,000 of years since the ancient Greeks, everyone was like, okay, the first thing we do when we want to create knowledge is we go out and observe things. So we're just standing there and being prepared to look at the reality and create knowledge. Okay? So, for instance, a good example would be, I don't know, you go out in the wild and you want to study forests. And let's say you just go and you want to study nature and forests. So you come to the forest and you're just standing there in the middle and you just observe. So your goal is to understand how forests work. How forests or nature or biology, evolution works. Yeah, animals and so on. Like, super broad general goal. And that was kind of a part of it also. So they just say, go out in the forest and just look around. Okay. Like, they would specifically say, empty your mind from preconceptions, from biases and so on. And if your mind is it's kind of a white piece of paper, then you will observe with your eyes the reality purely, and the theories will come upon you. The knowledge about how the forest works or what it is will come upon you, and you'll just see them through. Okay. Now, the problem with that first step is that what exactly you look at. There are infinite number of variables or patterns you can look in the forest, literally infinite. Which exactly you should focus on to understand what the forest is, right? A better example would be, so if you empty your really mind, well, we can also talk about how realistic that is, to empty it from all preconceptions and biases. But what do you observe? What do you specifically focus on? Why the bird and not, like, I don't know, a branch or a tree and so on? A very prominent example of this, because my first example might be not so great, is like Michelson. So Albert Michelson was leading physicist of his time before, at the end of the 19th century, so 1890 something. Leading theories, top notch. His mind has all the theories one can think of, all the right theories to understand physics. Okay, so he was observing the experiments which were on the fundament of Einstein inventions of general relativity. They were the basis. Einstein saw those experiments and thought of like, oh wow, maybe general relativity is the answer. Michelson was a leading physicist, also saw those experiments, but he saw them 20 years ago, before Einstein did publish his papers and did all the research, did all the groundbreaking inventions he did. Okay, so if the first step is to observe things, how come Michelson, that was observing the same experiments as Einstein was, did not arrive, why did not theories come upon him, right? And people would say, no, but he did not empty his mind.
Yeah,
from
he's not smart enough or something.
Yeah,
maybe yes.
But like, you can't say this part of epistemology wouldn't allow to say he's not smart enough. The best thing they can say, he did not empty his mind from preconceptions, and that's why
he was not looking good enough.
He was. Yeah. But the point is that his preconceptions is what made all the difference. Is that he chose to look at this specific part of the experiment and not that, and guess that it is explained by this and not that when you compare it to Einstein. So like in the first place, when Michelson arrives to his work, right, and he's like, okay, I need to really recreate Newtonian physics and make it better, right? I'm gonna sit here in my desk and okay, so what do I do? He needs to have preconceptions to decide what experiments to run and so on. So you can't empty your mind. Like he needs preconceptions to choose what to look at. Preconceptions are necessary. It's your kind of ideas of the world, and you can't escape them, and you should not. What's the useful part is. So he had some of the preconceptions right. He looked at the same experiments as Einstein did, and he was like, maybe something is up here. Maybe I can improve upon Newton. But he still has different with Einstein that when you observe any experiment, I don't know, when like, there's always the example of this video with gorilla, right? Mm-hmm. Which it says where the kids pass the ball and you don't see the gorilla.
It's a video, there are a bunch of kids, they play around with the ball, and then you are told like, okay, count how many times the white team is passing the ball. So you're like fully focused on that, and afterwards they ask you like, hey, did you see the gorilla? Because in the video there's a gorilla walking like right through this like kids passing the ball. Yes. But if you really focus on the ball and you don't know that there's a gorilla, you actually don't see it because you focus on the gorilla. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's funny the reaction I received when I gave the digression talk. Everyone was like, stop saying we don't need to see it.
Everybody knows. Yes.
Yes. Everyone knows the video. Super popular. But the point is that, okay, imagine like this passing of the ball is pretty much what happens when one does an experiment or anything observed in reality. There is a shit ton of variables one can look at or focus at, right? You can look at gorilla and say, oh, Mark, why are you showing this as video? I know the gorilla part. You can focus on counting the balls. You can focus on what is behind the ball, behind the wall of those kids, how many boys and girls, what shorts are they wearing, what shoes are they wearing, what about the socks, what about the haircuts, what about the color of their eyes, what was the name of the author of the video when he was published, how many millions of views the video has, what browser am I using when I'm showing you the video, what is happening outside the window while you show it to me on the screen, right? So there are literally infinite number of variables one can focus on. And the only way to navigate which variables matter or not is based on the preconceptions, right? Okay, so preconceptions are super important. And Einstein had a better preconceptions than Michelson. He had a better things to focus on and a better guesses than Michelson. And that's why Michelson is the guy who just says, oh, it's just the guy we now talk about to explain why some epistemology doesn't work, and Einstein is Einstein. No offense to Michelson. I'm sure he knows way more than I do anyways. Not dunking on physicists. Okay, so one cannot go and observe. Now, like if you understand really this part, then you already discarded 2,000 years of epistemology. 2,000 of years. Everyone was confused by it. And specifically Karl Popper, this is the main philosopher.
1 second. So specifically the people were thinking that they can just observe but nobody really did it because it's not really possible. Like it
Yeah.
was just a theory
Yeah.
about epistemology, which turned out like to be very wrong.
Yeah.
But in the end, like it's not like people did epistemology wrong. They just had a wrong theory about it.
Yes. They were still doing knowledge somehow.
Yes.
Right? The way Newton thinks he does induction. We'll talk about induction.
But he doesn't.
But he doesn't really do it. No, he doesn't really
Yeah,
do induction. What he does is like what we'll talk about, right? So it's trying to explain what Newton has done that caused so much breakthrough. But then you'll say, well, okay, then it doesn't matter, right? Like Newton still arrived at the conclusions. Why we need to really?
Yeah. Why do we need to know if it's called induction or
Why bother?
whatever?
Why bother?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
because people would go out and actually try to do induction as it says in the book, and they'll be like, oh, that does not work. So it's important to know because you can be more explicit about it, you can do it more efficiently and so on. Yeah, of course it's better to be guided. Okay, so the observation part and the main philosopher we'll rely upon is Karl Popper. So Karl Popper says the main idea about observations is that observations are theory-based or theory-laden. I just say theory-based. So all your observations are based on the theories you have about the world. So Michelson had some theories about the world that led him in the first place to do the experiment, to look at some things. But Einstein had a bit other theories or ideas in his mind about the world, which led him to focus on a bit different parts of the experiments, which led to the breakthrough. So when you go out in the forest, we're going to stick so sadly to this example. And let's say, I don't know, you want to focus on, we should really think of like a good example, like trees and what contributes to a tree growing more, okay? You can look at everything.
Like what contributes to the size of a tree? Yes.
Yeah, what contributes to the size of a tree? You can look at everything there is. You can say, well, maybe it's the dogs or the animals around the tree, and you start observing the animals and so on.
Maybe it's how close it is to water. Maybe it's like what kind of leaves the tree has, like like the type of tree, or like
It's how dense they are also, right? Like there is infinite number of things you can focus. It's about how many ant plants there are next to it.
Yes.
Right? Infinite things you can focus on. You are deciding that, oh no, it's maybe because how dense the trees are packed to each other, right? So they might don't have enough soil and so on. You're choosing to focus and measure this variable because of the theories about the world you have before, because of the ideas you have in your mind about before. Okay, you need to navigate them live. There's no way around it. And he did a famous example where he just said to his listeners, so he was lecturer, and to his students, he said the first thing he did in his lectures was, he said, observe. And you just sit there quietly. And so they're like, well, what exactly do you want us to observe? And he's like, aha. So you can't just sit out there when I say to you observe and observe everything in once. No, we have limited focus. We can't focus on a few things at a time. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's out of a blue. That's already like 2,000 years out. So, and that is the theory of empiricism. So it's basically that you just look up in the wild and the reality writes upon you the theories. They just arrive at you. You are just a passive observer who just gets the reality in. Okay, so what is actually the first step? The first actual step is finding some problem in the current explanations that we have about reality and being like, maybe I should try to solve this problem. This kind of doesn't add up. What's up with that? So an example, this is an actually prepared example, is about celestial sphere. So celestial sphere theory is that, okay, I look up in the sky and I see some blue dim dots in the sky, and I kind of don't know why they are there and why they move in the night, right? I'm not moving, why they're moving. And they were like, okay, so someone saw this as a problem. I don't understand the dots. And someone was like, okay, the solution is that here is our Earth, and around the Earth there is a sphere, a couple of stars, and this couple has dots, so holes in it, right? And basically the holes are shining upon us, and the couple moves around the Earth, and that's why they all in synchrony move. And everyone was like, holy shit, that actually explains what I'm seeing. Great explanation, thanks for inventing it. Problem solved.
Yeah.
So if the problem is solved, if everyone is fine with the explanation, you don't need to improve upon it. There's no knowledge creation happening. So what happened then is that some guys observed, holy shit, some dots are wiggling and not moving like every other dot does. Why is that? Your celestial sphere idea does not explain that. So there was a problem in the explanation. That was the first step that actually occurred, is that someone was like, no, doesn't seem, or like at least that there is something there that I need to like explain, because the dots are wiggling and they should not be wiggling. They should just move all in synchrony. Okay, so celestial sphere doesn't maybe really explain it. So what do you do then? You have a problem of the wiggly dots move in a weird shape, and that doesn't go against celestial sphere. You just guess. You just make a guess of like, oh, maybe it is. Let me think of a good example which they give.
Maybe it's an angel that is shining, flying around. I don't know.
Yeah, let's stick to the angel. So you can say like, oh, it is the angel explanation, right?
Like everything is a celestial field, but those dots are angels.
Or they move by angels. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Or an angel is changing where the hole is.
Yeah. Super cool. Thank you, Elias. Okay, problem solved. That's the epistemology overall. Explain. Yeah, so some guys would be like, well, it's the angels, right? So what's the problem with the angels idea? It's not testable. And that turned out to be a super important big part of science. And what kind of started the Enlightenment is that everyone was like, no, you need testable theory so I can actually go out for myself and check. I don't trust your word, just like your words for saying.
Okay, explain. Why is a non-test, like an irrefutable theory, bad? Because it could be true. Like it could be the angel.
Yeah, it definitely could be the angel. But it's just not a useful way to navigate life. We need some testable theories, because I can say, no, it's not angels, Elias. It is lions. Lion angels. So they have a head of a lion, and
the rest is the body of an angel.
The body of an angel. You were good enough, but not true. It's the lion head angel. Okay. Now, how do we decide?
If it's normal angel, lion head.
Yeah. Yes. Or if it's, I don't know, a horse or a donkey, going up and moving up the star.
Yes,
how do we decide between lion angels, and donkeys? Turns out there's pretty much no way to decide between those two, with those three. David makes an idea about how we can, because these are just still philosophical ones. So we need some robust way to differentiate, and the way it is to observe the thing. If I don't see the angels, they're kind of not there. Like this is kind of the idea. If I cannot do some experiment to check whether it's the angels, lionhead angels, or the donkeys, then all those guesses are kind of bad. I need the guesses where they would make some testable predictions. They would say they would. So specific note. You need angels which make some risky prediction. So, for instance, you might say, okay, it's the angels theory because if we go out in 2 weeks in advance, this specific star will wiggle like this, and we kind of don't know if it would actually. So someone is making a risky bet.
Okay, what about, by the way, for people listening, in this podcast, we will also discuss with the risk of being wrong and stuff, and we will try like explore ideas. So, what about theories that are not testable right now? Like, if I have a theory, like, this is not untestable. Like, if I say something about quantum physics, I say like, okay, my theory is that like or even like, let's say my theory is that like the smallest particles we know, like quarks or whatever, like they consist out of like whatever particles and those particles, and we can't test it right now because we don't have the things to measure this. Yeah. But it's still a falsifiable theory because at some point we could measure it.
Yeah, right? that would be better than nothing. That would be better than like impossible to measure.
Okay. Yeah.
So for instance, string theory, I have not studied string theory, but its main criticism is that it's a theory that tries to explain the world, how the world is, but it's untestable. Okay? Like it just fails at the first criterion. There's no experiment we can perform to tell whether it's string theory or quantum physics.
But it might still be right.
Yeah, it might still be right, but we need to navigate somehow, differentiate between the right and unright ideas. And I can say, no, it's string theory, but with donkeys.
Okay.
And good luck kind of solving this.
Okay. So what we try is to always find theories that we can disprove. But don't we, if we do that, take the risk that we throw away a right theory? Or like it's a trade-off that it's worth it, you say? Like,
there is always risk that we're throwing out the right theory.
yeah.
But yeah, you just need to navigate somehow, because everyone can just make a bunch of other sub-theories, which are this theory, but not exactly. But like, to be fair to David, so in his Beginning of Infinity, he provides kind of, I'm not sure to what extent it's an epistemological breakthrough, but at least he says so. But I'm now coming from like months of studying this. I'm not sure to what extent fully.
Month of discussing it.
Yeah, months of discussing it. So, yes, he says that you can differentiate philosophically between theories by seeing which ones are hard to vary and easy to vary. So, an important point. When I say testable, I mean testable empirically. So we can look up, go out in the world. There's no ambiguity there. So, for instance, how did we know that that Einsteinian physics is better than Newtonian? Is that the guy went and looked up in the stars in the stars when there was an eclipse, and he saw that Newtonian physics says the stars would be here, and Einsteinian physics said the stars would be there, not here but there. And he was like, okay, let's just go out and see where the stars would be. Turns out the star was closer to where Einsteinian physics said. So he's like, cool, it explains the reality better than the Newtonian one. And it was specifically because he went out and did the test. He tested the theory, the Einsteinian theory. And it's a risky prediction. It's like not obvious that, oh, the sun will go up tomorrow, right? It's, well, if I say, no, Elias, everything in reality is explained by a spaghetti monster all controlling it, and you'll be like, what's the test? I'm like, the sun will go up tomorrow, it's the spaghetti monster, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't understand. What do you mean? Because the sun will, because it's not a risky prediction.
Yeah, it's obvious.
It's like that the sun is going to go up. But I say, okay, in my no spaghetti monster explanation, the sun also goes up. So you have to make a guess where it differs from my non-spaghetti monster explanation, probably, right?
Yes. Yes, of course. So if you have a theory where we both say the sun will go up tomorrow.
Yeah, then it's not a differdifferentiating factor. Like we don't test that. Yes.
Cool. That's a super important idea. So these testable theories have to have a very important idea is crucial experimental test.
Mm-hmm.
So what it means is that two theories diverge on what the outcome will be. Newtonian physics said this, and Einstein said that, right? So if both of our theory of spaghetti and non-spaghetti monster of reality say it's the sun will go up tomorrow, then there's no point in observing the sun. Yeah. It will go up tomorrow. Like we won't know how to differentiate. So epistemology mainly is about differentiating between two ideas. You want to say that one idea is better than the other. And it's all about how, is this better than that one or the other way around? So when you have Newtonian physics and Einsteinian physics, which one do we choose? If they both make the same predictions, let's say, they pretty much make the same predictions when you're on Earth. So Newtonian physics is super simple and quite accurate on Earth, but not up in black holes. So on Earth, there is no really point.
So if we drop a ball, no matter if we use Einstein or Newton, the ball will hit the ground at the same time. Both predictions are the same, so there's no point in dropping balls. Yes.
We wouldn't be able to differentiate that this one is better than this one.
Yes.
Okay. So we need experiments and predictions which differentiate between the theories, which make us observe and say, this one. Okay. Right? So that is super important idea. And so this is how we differentiate between ideas empirically. So just to kind of recap, we had a problem, and then we guessed a solution, and now we have to check whether our guess solution is better, explains the reality better than our initial theories of the world. So let's say Einstein just studied a bunch, looked a bunch, and was like, okay, my guess is that general relativity, and we now have to find out whether general relativity is better than Newtonian physics. Okay, now we're
so the thing is, we have Newtonian physics, and Newtonian physics has some problems.
Yes,
and so we already know that Newtonian physics can't be right.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So, and he came up with something that explains those that explains those findings that Newtonian physics can't explain.
Yes.
And then he did a crucial experiment, but essentially the crucial experiment he wouldn't even have to do it because already, like from the observation or from the stuff that broke or that showed that Newtonian physics is wrong, this stuff, like Einsteinian explanation explains the Newtonian part and also the part that Newton doesn't explain.
Yes.
So already it's a better theory, but then we need a crucial test.
Yeah, we need to know whether Einstein was actually right or he's just making up all this shit. Or because he looked at the observation and just tried to make a theory that would like align with all new observations we've seen.
So I know you hate this word, but wouldn't like if we make now this test, wouldn't it be positive evidence?
Yeah. So positive evidence is cool. Yes. Wait, I want just to make one more comment, is that Einstein not only tries to explain what we already seen has problems with Newtonian physics and like solves that, he actually predicts what we have not seen yet. So black holes were not observed, black holes were not observed before Einstein published his theory. Sorry, I don't remember. It either was black holes or gamma ray bursts.
I think it was black holes.
I'm quite sure, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, this is a mistake. Yeah. Humans make mistakes. We'll come up to that. That's super important idea also. So, and only then afterwards, when Einstein published, he said, oh yeah, probably we eventually going to observe black holes. Let's just stick to black holes. We actually did, and then like, I don't know, some years later, we're like, whoa, black hole, as he said it would be. Whoa.
Oof, I actually read the book about it. A friend of mine gifted me a book about black holes. And in the past, like when he came up with it, people were like, yeah, so our best theory says that there are black holes, but like there's probably some law of nature that we don't know yet because it would be so ridiculous if black holes exist. But
yeah, well there are a bunch of laws of nature which we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
So positive evidence. So okay, that's super right moment to talk about it actually. So you want to differentiate between two theories, we're gonna stay to Newtonian and Einsteinian. Yeah. This is a super good example, super studied well. Okay, you want to differentiate, you want to know about one or the other. Okay, cool. Positive,
but you don't have to. Like what I say, like you don't have to differentiate between them because the whole reason why Einstein came up with general relativity was because there were problems with Newtonian.
Yeah.
Right? And are there also problems with Einsteinian?
Yeah, of course.
Like, at the point that he made it? Like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just break it to you. Quantum physics and...
Yeah, I know with the quantum physics. Yes. But I mean, like, at this time, was there already quantum physics? Maybe also doesn't matter, but like...
Yes.
Okay, let's say just for... Okay, so we have... But Newtonian also doesn't explain quantum physics, right?
No.
Yeah, so we have we have this big thing of reality, and a part of it is explained by Newton. And Einstein explains what Newton explains and a bit more, but still not everything.
Yes.
So why do we have to differentiate between them if Einstein already explains more than Newton?
Okay, that's a good question. So it's because we actually not sure whether Einstein is correct. Like we don't know if he's right. Like he's just like, what would be a good example? So for instance, black holes, right? Let's say we observed black holes and there is some guy coming and say, yeah, I know the black holes. Yeah, I can explain why they are there. Spaghetti monster.
So Newton plus spaghetti monster.
Yeah, Newton plus spaghetti monster.
Yes.
But also you can just in general say, yeah, spaghetti monster. And he will use Newtonian formulas or Einsteinian formulas to use them. So when we already have seen that something doesn't add up with Newton and we create up explanation to explain it, like it's just in general a tough problem because you also have to explain everything that Newton explained before. So it has to work not only on new cases which have problems, but also on the cases which we know work, like with Newton and the building bridges, for instance. So it's like just creating a good enough theory, as Newton already has, is a really hard problem. But so most of the time, people would just say, okay, it's Newton plus spaghetti monster of explaining the black holes, right? But Einstein creates kind of a new entire framework of like, okay, yes, I can explain everything Newton does and also this new things, and I can predict that there sometimes will be black holes.
Okay, and to get sufficient sure in this theory of Einstein, we need to make like experiments.
We need we need to differentiate between, okay, do we trust Einstein? Do we use that or keep up with Newton?
In an ideal world, in an ideal world, you wouldn't need that, because let's say I have a list of observations. Okay, maybe not. Like
because there are infinite number of things.
No, but let's say I have like, okay, if I drop a ball here, it falls like with this kind of speed, it drops to the floor in this kind of time. If I throw a ball, it flies like in this kind of curve. If like the stars are moving in this kind of way, like the sun is moving in this kind of way, and this is all explained by Newton. But then I like, well, but this planet is moving a bit different, like then like or this is kind of different than Newton says. So so now I have my list of observations, and like 90% of them or 99% of them are explained by Newton. Like there's like a green check mark behind each, but then there's this 1% where there is no green check mark, or like even more. And then now I have, okay, let's say Newton makes like 98. So then I have Einstein, and it does 99% check mark. Why do I have to make a test?
Well, you first have to check that it's 99. So you would... So for instance...
You don't have the perfect list.
No, but it's perfect. The example still works. So you have 100 possible observations to make, right? You're like, okay, Einstein does this well, this well, this well, this well, this well. Okay, you can... And you see, okay, he explains just as well all the 98, but there's those two which Newton does not like explain, right? So you need to know, okay, first, like just to be very clear, Newton and Einstein explain the world in entirely different frameworks. Newton doesn't really talk about time or what it is. Einstein was like, time is a fourth dimension, and depending on how on the mass of your object, how big it is, just like how heavy it is, just like in simple English, the heavier the object, the more it will bend the time, and things will go faster or slower according to time. So that's like a super big different idea, right? The reality as a whole, your understanding of what reality is has to change if you take this on board seriously. So you really have to know, okay, well, do I now treat time as a fourth dimension or not? And for that, you need to kind of decide, okay, it's Newton or Einstein. So the crucial experiment test, or the differentiating between those two theories, would come up to those two experiments. So let's say the 100th one is explained by neither. They're like both fail horrendously. But yet the 99th is better explained by Einstein than by Newton. And you're like, okay, it's more accurate at explaining reality than Newton.
That's the crucial test.
And that's
like that is test. This looking at the sun at the eclipse and seeing if the stars are kind of like there or here. And this is the 99th example.
Yes. And it's important that they have different predictions.
So you look exactly, okay, they predict all the same except here. So that's where we test. And that's how we differentiate. Yes.
Just in general, epistemology and differentiating ideas is kind of like the super essence and the core of it. Okay, now talking about positive evidence. So people were like, okay, we need to differentiate between ideas. Why not just say that some ideas we need to give more evidence or support to the others, and then the idea that has more support or evidence is the right one. The idea that has less of it is the wrong one. What's up with the crucial experiment test? Or, as I'll defend it, is like was criticizing the ideas and choosing the one that has least errors. So, think about it. I mean, what is positive evidence?
Should I? Okay.
Yes.
So, if I say, we can go to the height example again.
Height example?
So just for people, take my water, listening, you have to imagine like the past 4 months, like that Mark is studying, is essentially like every day we're discussing about everything. Like whenever we're on, like we discuss about it, but we're not gonna do any insiders here. We just, I'm gonna explain. So one of my criticisms against the claim that there is no positive evidence, we're both like trying to figure out the truth. So it's not like we're like that we know, like we just like we always try to be devil's advocate, try to fight for one side or the other, and try to arrive to truth like this.
Elias does a way better job than I do at this.
So what I was thinking is, okay, if I observe like if Marx says there's no positive evidence, but I say, okay, I believe my theory is that men are on average 1 meter and 80 centimeters tall. So, and then I take a random sample of 100 men, and it turns out the average is exactly 180 of those 100 that I randomly chose from the whole population of men in the world. Isn't that then positive evidence for my theory that men are on average 1 meter and 80 centimeters tall?
Yeah. So you're making kind of like an extrapolation. You're going from, okay, here is a small sample, and then of people on island,
Yes.
and then up, right? It becomes the whole humanity.
Yes.
So a positive evidence for, okay. So positive evidence is not really useful for differentiating ideas, because it's not useful for differentiating ideas. It's not that great as trying to criticize ideas. And that is a super important idea of this whole epistemology about, is that when you have two ideas, you want to criticize both of them, and the one that stands criticism best is chosen. You're actually trying to prove your ideas wrong.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, let's say your theory is that men are on average 1 meter 90 centimeters tall.
Okay.
And then we do the crucial experiment of taking 100 randomly chosen men, and they are 180. So it's like, I think like it's not a proof of my theory.
It's a disproof of my theory.
No, it's also not a disproof. Like it could be like, you can say like, yeah, well, it was just random chance that we picked the smaller ones. But in the end, like it is evidence against your theory. And
it's kind of
evidence for like is positive evidence. Oh, I think I wrote that on like is positive evidence not? Is it just like it's essentially negative evidence for all the other theories? Because like no matter what, like let's say you say, okay, no, I think it's 181 or it's 179. So no matter which size exactly you say, like it kind of like when I have a sample with exactly 180. It is negative evidence for all those theories, like to differing degrees, because it can always be like luck, except for the theory that is exactly 180.
Exactly. Like that's a super important idea. That is true. Yeah, absolutely right. So it disproves every idea but 181.
But it doesn't disprove.
Yeah,
like,
it's just
it's
like, just a criticism against.
It's like yes. Like okay, if it's 2 meters, like how the fuck did we observe a sample of 180? Okay, but then like our classic statistics make sense, like because that's exactly how. Okay, so in like me, before I started to study artificial intelligence, I studied psychology, and also in cognitive science, artificial intelligence, we also learned statistics. So the basic idea of how in psychology you do an experiment is that you have a sample and you look at what, like how prevalent, like for example, depression is in the sample, or like, and then you can like kind of calculate how likely this is caused by chance, like from looking at the size of the sample and stuff. So and also by looking at how far it is from the mean you expect. So that's like a t-test. It's called, like, for example, let's say I suspect that those 100 randomly chosen men that we test, like that in the underlying population, so in all men in the world, the average is 180. So I take a sample of 100 men. So now I can calculate how likely it is that this sample has an average of 190. If like I can calculate, okay, let's say it is, like we just say it is true that it is 180. It's still possible to get 190 as an average of those 100 men. So I can calculate how likely it is to choose a sample of men that are 190, and like let's say it's I have a 1% chance of getting this sample with this height. So if I get the sample, it is only 1%, like it's like only 1 out of 100 times I get a random sample, I get a value that is this extreme or more extreme. Yeah. So I can say, well, it's kind of unlikely that my theory is true, because like, okay, it's possible, but it's very unlikely. And like I can do another sample and again, like, well, I don't think that like Yes.
And beforehand, you agree that, if it's less than 5%, then whatever.
Yes, exactly.
That's important.
Of course, you don't know, but like, that's how it's used. Yes.
And then scientists, of course, try to hack to get,
exactly.
below 5%, guys, it's all right. So there's, okay.
Yeah. So, but then this makes sense, kind of. Like, it's a good framework to differentiate between ideas. Yes. And also, okay, now back to the idea of positive evidence.
Yes.
Then, like, is it just that, like, the word positive evidence is bad? Because, like, it kind of exists. Like, when I have an evidence that is negative evidence for everything except my theory, like, in my... I have like a big note-taking system. I take a lot of notes, and like in there, I take like I have like a lot of like propositions, so like ideas, and I try to criticize them. But and I was thinking, like, after we talked so much about epistemology, like, okay, I can't put positive evidence into a note. I can only put negative evidence into a note, because otherwise I'm just trying to confirm myself. But if there is an evidence that criticizes all the other notes except the one that I think is right, like, it's just more efficient to put it as positive evidence in this one note, except instead of putting it in all the other notes. Like, because then, like, let's say all the other notes I delete because, like, okay, they are wrong. And then I come up with another explanation, and then I see, like, okay, I look into, and those ideas clash. Like the one with the positive evidence and the, like, a new one that I came up with, and then, like, well, this positive evidence of this note, which is actually only it just says that this theory explains this thing which is not explained by most theories. Like, like, for example,
the black holes,
like the black holes by Einstein. Like black holes are not positive evidence for Einstein, but they're negative evidence for
every
Newton
other theory.
and for all the other theories that are similar to Newton.
So what's the problem with that? The decisive criticism for that is that, so David talks about this extensively in his first book, Fabric of Reality. So just for some of you who actually want to, like, I think it was chapter 7. Yeah. So imagine you stay on top of the Eiffel Tower. We're having a debate.
Oh,
yes. As always. Normal break. And you're like, okay, so you say positive evidence is great or something like this. I don't know. We're just having some epistemology debate. You're saying, I can... so you basically create a new theory. You say... So basically, the world is explained just as Einstein said, but there is one additional caveat. When you, Mark, jump from the Eiffel Tower, you actually float. You won't like ascend and die. You'll just float like a puffy and just go down like a beautiful cloud. You'll be safe. You won't die. So every other experiment we have ever done will be in line for those theories. So Newtonian is horrendously far from being correct than your Mark float Einstein theory, right? Like, Newton is far as hell, and actually every other experiment we have ever done is a positive evidence, not just for Einsteinian theory, but for Mark float theory.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I can differentiate and add those small buts literally infinite number of times. So I can say, no, it's not just Mark. It's you, Elias, or it's 7 billion people on Earth, or any object on Earth, and so on. So I can differentiate Einstein theory literally infinite number of times. So what exactly is the positive evidence for? Is it for Einstein theory, or is it for Mark float Einstein theory?
I understand. So, okay, maybe positive evidence, it's not... In the end, it's not what you use to decide for a theory. It's just what you use. Okay, like, when I use it in my notes to decide if an idea is right or wrong, it's just like a reminder of that, okay, most theories, like most sensible theories, like, fail on this point, but this one not. So it's like useful. And of course I could make, like, okay, this theory, like, I could make a million theories that are kind of like this theory, but a bit different, but they
would still work.
But they still have this positive evidence. But then it's not meaningful anymore, because I still have to differentiate between them.
Yes,
and if they're like all like okay, they all meet this, like positive evidence is like a maybe a threshold. Like okay, you could say okay, this is like if a theory doesn't explain this, it can't be true. Like if a theory and this theory explains it, so it's positive evidence for the theory. But
there are infinite number of those theories.
But there are always infinite number of theories.
Yes.
So
how do you
it's
differentiate
kind of
those?
Meaningless. Okay, that's really. I think I gained some new understanding. Yes.
Oh, that was such a good one.
We just shanked hands for people.
We have a very specific standard for shaking hands.
So okay, yes, that makes a lot of sense because like there are always infinite number of theories that explain all your observations and all your quote unquote positive evidence. So positive evidence, it makes sense to use it for. Like just if you want to use it for efficiency, like to kind of remind yourself that all the theories that don't explain this thing are out. Like this, like this giant part of the.
But you can just say it's a criticism for a bunch of those theories.
Like it's positive evidence is negative evidence for all these theories except the infinite ones. It is not
the other infinity of those theories.
But this infinity is much smaller than this other infinities. So like
actually some infinities can be larger than others, but like there is a very specific way in which one infinity can be bigger than others. Like I'm not.
I really want to talk about this also, but I don't know how deep you went into it.
No, I actually can explain the infinities. But let's
stay in epistemology first.
Okay, cool. So you want to differentiate between theories, and positive evidence doesn't really help with like this infinite variations. So David was like, in his second book, it's so funny because you read the first book and you're going through this chapter and he's trying to explain the insight he got in the second book and he can't. He's like grasping with it. He's trying to use some words. He's like, argument, right? And you're like, what? David, like, what is argument? And he really tries to explain why you can't use positive evidence, but he can't. He tries to specifically explain how do you differentiate between the Mark float theory and the normal Einstein theory without doing the experiment, without actually having to jump over the Eiffel Tower. Yes. And that is like super good. That is super important because for now we talk about only how to differentiate theories empirically when you go out and actually test it. And that's super inefficient. That's like a lot of ideas. Like everyone has some ideas.
Because like there are infinite people that can jump off the Eiffel Tower to test if they float. Like,
and then everyone would say, no, but it's the newborn, right? Or it's it's not, it's this object.
Yes.
So we need to take this whole infinity of theories somehow and all together just say, no, fuck them, Einstein is good.
So we need like a heuristic to,
a philosophical criterion, because it's philosophical because we're talking about it abstractly.
That is similar. It's similar to we don't want unfalsifiable theories because like they might be true, but we can't just say like, okay, all unfalsifiable theories, we take them with the same value as falsifiable ones.
Yes.
Because otherwise we end up with like a million theories that could all be wrong and we could all be right and we can't differentiate.
Yeah. And but also then you can actually navigate yourself in unfalsifiable theories if you have a philosophical argument. Because it's okay if it's not it's unfalsifiable empirically. I can punch it philosophically. And like, it doesn't stand the criterion, so it's all good. So the criterion is, and he presented as epistemological breakthrough. Not sure to what extent I totally buy that, but it's useful. The idea is that theories must be hard to vary. So the philosophical idea of the philosophical criterion is that you want to choose theories which are harder to vary or that are more adaptive than the other theories. So that are more robust to change. You can't just change every variable and they would still work. So keeping up with Einstein and Mark float, I can put, instead of me, 7 billion people and every object on Earth, and the theories would still be fine, kind of. Like, there is no inherent limitation why I can't say it's Elias, right?
Yes. The theory would be same way confusing if you say it's Mark that floats or it's Elias that floats.
Yes. It's easily variable. This variable is easily varied.
Yes.
But nothing else in Einstein theory is easy to vary, because if you vary it, the whole theory just drops. It doesn't make sense. It cannot explain the reality. It just falls flat everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Now and he says that's why you choose the Einstein, because it doesn't have this needless part, that needless part that is just there, and
It's easy to vary.
that is easy to vary.
So how you find those easy, like the needless parts, according to him, it's how easy they are to vary
Yeah.
without breaking the theory.
Yeah.
With only like only breaking like a little edge of the theory. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if you have like those little additions that actually don't really contribute to the theory, you can be like, well, this is too easy to vary, so like we try to keep the theory as simple as possible. It is kind of like Occam's razor. So how I learned what Occam's razor is, it is like you don't want to add things to your personal ontology, and personal ontology is just a fancy word for the list of things you believe in. So you want to have the list of things you believe in to be as short as possible. So let's say I want to explain how sickness works. I can say, okay, I think it's because of like those bacteria that fly through the air, and because of witches. Then because the witch makes like a spell, and then the bacteria and stuff, you know, like. But I can also be like, yeah, it's like just the bacteria without the witches, because like I don't like. It explains the same thing, but the list is short. Because I don't have to believe in witches, so there's no point in believing in witches if the rest already explains it without. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of needless. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a fair point. But it's also a small list because it's like easier to check. Like it's more tractable.
Yes.
I guess.
Like,
That's a good point.
Occam's razor is like that's how what I learned Occam's razor is. So it's like, I think it's all kind of similar, like with the easy to vary and stuff.
No, it's
like,
very similar.
Like it's all like they try to find a heuristic on what ideas to disregard of this giant infinity. Like and it's just like in the end you probably come to a similar conclusion if you use like Occam's razor or hard to vary. Actually, hard maybe not, because Occam's razor, like let's use Occam's razor for the Eiffel Tower example.
Yeah.
So to jump down from the thing, you can actually say but that's
important to explain.
That is exactly like
it's a bit different, but very similar vibes.
Yes.
Very similar.
Yes. So Occam's razor says it's not like Occam's razor doesn't say anything about what theories you can make. It just says that if you have if all your stuff can be explained by the same two theories and one is more complicated than the other, choose the one that is less complicated.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any statements about theories that both explain everything. Wait, it does make claims about theories that both explain everything. Maybe you can say, okay, I think I know how to use it. So we have this Eiffel Tower example, and you can say, okay, all this theory can be explained by my explanation Newton and Einstein, and or my theory Einstein plus Elias floats right now. So this plus Elias floats would be a thing you have to add to your personal ontology.
Yeah.
Like in both cases, you have to believe in Einstein. Like there's no way around that.
Yeah, but there you add the list of
but
Elias
there
floats.
you add this. So it is something that would be a thing on your list.
Yeah, it's a needless assumption.
So like of course it could be true, but yeah, but it wouldn't be like it doesn't make sense to believe in it because it adds something to your theory that is needless.
Yeah, right? that is needless. That doesn't. We don't need to explain reality just as well.
Like you have to believe in Einstein anyway in both cases. Yeah, just the Einstein plus. But there are cases in which it is true.
Yeah, but then you go and test it or something.
Yes. But then you go and test it, but we don't want to test it.
Yeah.
So then maybe that's the difference to hard to vary, right?
Because I'm not sure. So for instance, David uses other example where he talks about he talks about solipsism, but we'll just talk about metrics because it's a far better example. So just so a metrics theory is basically saying everything is just like the physical reality, the normal objective reality me and you all believe in, but there is one additional point that it's all in a matrix. It's all in a big computer simulating something, right? So David would say the matrix part is easy to vary because it could be, well, why it's not two computers? Because the Chinese guys have a firewall, so they run on the second computer and so on, right? Why there is no fucking 15 computers or like 100 computers for every country or every person and so on. So this part is kind of easy to vary, so you don't need it. You take out the easy to vary part, and then the theory stands just well without it. So you should take it out. It's very similar to Occam's razor because you're just saying, why do you have this assumption of, why do you add to your list of beliefs
the matrix
yes, part? Just don't add it.
Like it works also without the matrix.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's very similar.
It's very similar. Like, it's hard. And also the idea, but that's some, I won't remember now, but because I was having...
If you ever get a podcast with David, you have to ask him what is the difference between Occam's razor and hard to vary. Because there is a difference. Like, we also see the difference, but it's not like...
It's quite subtle.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So another criticism I have for the idea of hard to vary is the Greek myth tellers, right? So when... so David brings up the example of why the seasons happen, and Greeks thought that it basically has to do with a few gods. So one god stole a daughter of another god, they raped them, and the god whose daughter was stolen was sad, and then that's why the winter happens. And when the daughter returns, she's happy, and then that's why the summer happens. Great. So that's an explanation to a problem of why seasons happen, okay?
Yes.
The problem is, why the fuck we have a change of seasons quite often? And someone was like, it's the gods.
Yes.
Right? It's the lions or spaghetti monsters. So the criticism, so David would say, okay, cool, the part about gods is super easy to vary. Why it's not like a god X? Why this daughter? Why not God named with a different name? Why I don't know, why it was stolen, or why maybe she just have depression every 4 months, or why does it matter that it was raped? Maybe it wasn't raped, but she just felt sad. And he basically is like, every idea here can be changed easily. Why do we have to?
And it would still work.
And it would still work, right? So again, I would say, Occam's razor, just to criticize. No, wait. So the point is that, David, but they would say, no, it's very important that this God is doing this, because this God is about how about nature and about how the seasons change. And then he'd be like, okay, but why not this God instead of why not other God would be about nature? And they're like, because that's how it is. That's like an important God, and she has a daughter, and if that daughter gets stolen, well, obviously the God would be sad, and it's the God of nature, so obviously the nature would change. So when
so you can't really vary it hard.
Exactly. Like you can't just change around gods. This god is about nature, this god is about sun or something.
You have to change all the gods because it's very interlinked, complex structure of gods. So if you change one, all this thing breaks down because it's so complicated how the gods work. Oh, yes.
Okay, so it's hard to vary, so it's fine. And then we have to test it.
And then we have a problem. I also see a problem with Occam's razor on the same thing, maybe, because you can just say, okay, we want to believe in the least things possible, and you can say there are those three gods, and or there's one God because I want to believe in the least gods possible.
But there are three. I'm sorry, right?
No. But you could say actually with Occam's razor, you're just there's one God that makes this, and then if you try, but that's exactly the point of Occam's razor. If you say, okay, no, there's one God that makes the seasons, and then you figure out but there's also I figure out that the Earth is moving around the sun.
The actual physics.
Exactly. I figured it out, and then you say yes, that is true, but it's still the God that does it, and also the God still makes the seasons. And then you're but you know that the Earth is in an angle to the sun, and that makes a season. And you're yeah, but that's the God that does this. Like, and then you like at that point you're like, oh well, I don't need the God anymore because like I can explain it without the God exactly as well. So
it's a needless assumption.
Occam's razor works.
Yeah.
Okay, I just went on this too.
No. That makes sense. Yeah. So hard to vary. Yeah. It's kind of a real problem with just in science in general. How do you debunk some theories without doing the experiment? Right, and David would say, well, at least first of all, you need a good explanation for the theory. Like if you say that he uses super
grass,
you know where we're going with it. Yeah, so like we don't have to test. We as humans don't have to test every theory there is. And remember that because that would be quite important for evolution. We don't have to test every theory we can think of because we know some of them don't really make sense. So, for instance, you don't have to test a theory that a flu would be cured by a kilo of grass. We don't have to go make a person ill and then say eat a kilo of grass and then test
just to make an experiment if it works.
Yeah, we don't have to do the experiment. We just can be like, yeah, that doesn't. Like, what are your reasons? What is the explanation behind the mechanism of how grass will cure the other person? And we can criticize the explanation, and no need to do the whole experiment. So that saves us a lot of energy. And just a quick caveat to evolution. That's why we as humans can go through thousands of years fast. Like we go through innovation for thousands of years, and evolution is about millions of years. Well, like now we as humans are like about decades of innovation, and evolution is about, well, this million of year happened this. Yeah. And that other million.
We created an eye in like 1 billion years.
Yeah, so but to be fair, respect for an eye.
Definitely. But now humans can be like, yeah, we created a camera in
20
years. Yes, exactly.
That's why it's not millions of years, but decades.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we can save a shit ton of resources and energy just not running every experiment there is. Okay, cool. Now that's hard to vary. And that's how to differentiate the ideas philosophically. But most of the time you want a risky prediction that you can go out and test. And that's how you differentiate between the guesses you have, right? So just to recap the whole process, you have a problem with your current theories. Then you guess the solution to the problem. And then you criticize, and this is the third step, you criticize or you try to test the theory. And criticism is obviously...
So hard to vary is about how to guess.
It's also it's a criticism of the theory.
Okay, yeah.
But it's also what kind of theories you want. You want the theories which are robust.
So you look at a problem, you try to come up with the most simple explanation, the most hard to vary.
Yes.
Okay, and then you criticize.
So the whole process is, number one, you have a problem. 2, you try to guess the solution to a problem. Number 3, you have several guesses and you try to criticize them and see which one works best. And then you choose the last man standing, basically. The guess that has sustained the criticism the best or more than any other guess.
It's the most simple one of the infinite ones that have withstood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Taking that part. Yes. Now... Yeah, a big idea is, okay, what about induction in general, right? Like how does it all work? So induction is another way where people fought for 2000s of years and still believe some of how to explain how we create knowledge, right? So basically it says we look out and we see some patterns and so every time the pattern repeats, it's more likely to be true. Mm-hmm. So every time you go out you go out in the wild and you see the sun go up, right? Mm-hmm. And every day sun goes up, and it's like every day is a new evidence supporting the idea that the sun will go up. Mm-hmm. So every time we repeat some idea, it is adding the evidence to the theory that the sun will go up. A better example is you take a man with a bag of balls. Right, I think this is a perfect example for induction. So a man has a bag, and he starts taking out the balls. Right, he kind of can't see the bag, and you can't see what's in the bag, and he takes it with his kind of hand, kind of randomly. He takes the ball, and it's red, and he does so hundreds of times, and you're just looking at the man,
and always red balls.
Yeah.
Or even there's a bag, like, and he gives the bag to you, and you can pick out ball. Okay.
No, just stick to the man. But
But I like it works also the same way. If you
It's an easier as an example, I think, if this is the man, right? So you want to create, so the problem you faced was, okay, I want to know what's the next color. Just imagine, I don't know, it's a problem, someone asks you like, okay, so what's going to be the next color on 100th first time? So he did it 100th time, right
each
in
time
front of you.
red.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now he asks you or whatever, and he's like, yeah, if you guess what's the next color, I'll pay you money or something. This doesn't matter.
I give you €1.
Yeah. It's just a problem you need to solve. Okay, how do you go out about figuring out what's the solution? So induction would say, okay, every time he was rolling out the red one makes the theory that the next one is going to be red also more likely. So you should bet that it's red next time. Okay, so the problem was that because induction tries to explain how the whole knowledge creation process happens, is that you go out in the wild, observe some patterns, and then you say, oh, this pattern repeats, so it's going to keep on repeating, or something like this. And if you take a big enough sample, then you see that patterns repeat, stops, and you're like, okay, it repeated now, but then it stops, so it will repeat again. So like there is some pattern always.
What is the difference between induction and empiricism?
Yeah, so they're both super similar in the idea that you just go out in the wild and you observe things. You don't have preconceptions in the mind, right? You kind of free up your mind. So that is what empiricism is, and induction kind of builds upon that. So you say, oh, you do empiricism of just going out and seeing the world, but induction says that there are patterns and those patterns repeat, and you should find the patterns and kind of they repeat, and you should, that's the knowledge. So induction is kind of building upon the empiricism, but they both rely on the idea that you somehow can, out of infinite number of number of variables to focus on, find the right one by just kind of, I don't know, focusing your mind or something, like emptying up your mind. And that's the main criticism against induction also, is that, well, dear induction, what's the step one? To go out in the wild and observe things? Well, which things I should observe? So when you look at the guy with the bag of red balls, induction would say it's just kind of common sense that you should focus on the color of the balls he'll take, right? And that, I don't know, the fact that all this time he was taking hundreds of balls has nothing to do with him having, I don't know, sunglasses on or the sun being out, and that the sun being out has nothing to do with him. So say when he asks you to take 103rd, like what is the color of the 101st ball, he takes out his sunglasses, right? Induction would say, well, it's a common sense that sunglasses being on or off him has nothing to do with the color of the ball he will take. So induction says it's just like a common sense to demolish infinite number of factors out of the equation and just focus on the ones that are causally matter.
But we don't know which those are, because we could say that, okay, whenever he's wearing sunglasses, the balls are red, and when he's not wearing, I don't know, like I didn't see it yet because all the 100 balls were with sunglasses on, so I have no idea what's the next one. But you don't do that, so induction works.
What do you mean?
No, but like let's say, but I do look at this guy. Like I remember very distinctly, we had a long debate about this with another friend, and it was that I would say, okay, if I had to bet, like I see like this bag, and there are 100 balls pulled out of this bag, and each of them is red, like, and I have to bet on the next color. Like there's no way that I can't bet. Like then I would definitely bet red.
Yeah. But that's a big difference of, so we're talking about how knowledge is created. Induction explains that all knowledge that ever was created through this method. Through method of you going out, observing things, and then finding patterns, and then saying, oh, this pattern is true.
And there's no explanation.
No, there's like, how exactly do we differentiate between causal and correlationary variables? Because there are, again, infinite number of variables. So first of all, induction doesn't explain which ones to focus on. Fine. But then second of all, induction doesn't say which ones are causal and which ones are correlational. Because again, while this man sits and puts out things out of the bag, there are infinite number of variables that are just correlating with the bag, with the causal one. I don't know, of balls being in the bag or something like this.
But with induction, don't we, like when we make experiments, is that induction still? Like let's say I make the experiment of taking his sunglasses off and then let him pick 50 more balls, and they're also all red. And then I put his sunglasses back on, and they're still all red. So it's not the sunglasses. And I take his head off, and suddenly all of them are green, and then he puts his hat on again,
Yeah.
and suddenly all of them are red. So
Yeah.
I can be like, well, the hat seems to be causally related with the color of the balls, without having an explanation. So
Yeah,
there
but-
is a difference between causation and correlation.
No, because again, there can be
No, but
there is another infinite number of factors playing the role there.
But I am the one, like, okay, if I am the one deciding to take his hat off or not, like, it's an experiment.
Yeah, you can decide,
So
sure.
like, and each time I take his hat off, they're green. I take his hat on, they're red. On green,
yeah,
red.
yeah.
So wouldn't that mean that, like, because it's at some point it's very unlikely that it's randomness, like.
Yeah, the part of unlikeliness and randomness gets
Yes.
us into the hole I don't want to go into.
Yes,
to be honest.
yes.
But
Yeah.
like the point is that induction does not try to have an explanation. It's just a pattern repeating.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have an explanation, you can't differentiate between causal and correlationary. You can't say, like, even if you take the hat off, there are still infinite number of things, like the types of shorts he wears, and maybe that has something to do with the whole process. So
The way he stands, yeah.
yeah,
So,
I don't know. Or like when you take off his hat, there are also infinite number of factors that has changed besides the hat.
Mm-hmm.
Like the time has changed.
How this hair is.
Yeah.
Like,
There he has
positioned,
yes, perfect.
like,
Right. There are
exactly.
millions of hair, and
Yeah.
like every hair has changed now. So there are his hat and millions of hair on his head.
So you don't know if.
Was it hat or the millions of hair? And actually, it's
Yes.
more likely that it's one of the hairs because there are millions of them, and there's only one hat.
Yeah.
Summing up kind of the all epistemology, right? What is knowledge? Knowledge would be a highly adapted information that is trying to solve some problem. So it's a highly adapted solution that might be hard to vary, or that there's no additional things you need to add upon it. And then the whole epistemological process, as we best understand so far right now, is about, number one, finding a problem. Number two, seeing the problem and trying to guess the solution that will solve the problem. Number three, testing the existing solution and the one which you have guessed. And number four, when you test them, updating your view based on the one that makes the most amount of sense, right? And kind of what are the high leverage impact activities one does for epistemology, right? What are the real applications? So we've seen that we cannot add positive evidence to the theories, but we criticize them and let the last one man stand, right? So that means that anytime we create knowledge, anytime there is some improvement, it is about criticism. So one high leverage implication is that you have to make sure that you have means of correcting errors. If you don't have a way, a general idea how to correct the errors you have in your life, you won't be able to improve in any part of your life or in your relationship. So for instance, important maxim I got from this is that with good friendships or good partners or good anything, you want to have means of error correction. Because throughout your relationships with people, you'll go through some problems, and if you can't talk to each other, if you can't solve errors, then you won't be able to progress. You'll just be forced in the way you are. And also, just think about it that if a person cannot take a criticism or somehow have a method to take criticisms and correct errors, they're basically freezed in the way they are. They will be sustained like this forever. They won't really change or improve. And that's super bad. So all self-improvement, be it in business, in personal life, in any interpersonal relationships, is about having a way to correct errors and talk about the criticisms and improve upon criticisms or improve upon errors. So that would be kind of my highest leverage activities. Try to identify your most important beliefs, the highest leverage beliefs that kind of set out your whole life and what you think is important. So, for instance, for me, it would be that the laws of physics are the only real barrier, and anything that is within the laws of physics is possible. And maybe another idea would be something like a growth mindset that you can always improve upon. So these are two very important ideas in my life, which define most of the things I do. And I have to make sure that they don't have a lot of errors, that they're really right, because my whole life is about them. So the best thing I can do to respect those ideas is to go out and really try to debunk them, to really prove them wrong. So rationality and being wise person is one, about having a modesty to say that I don't really know and that I cannot be really 100% sure that I make mistakes, to being open to change your opinions and being open to and try to, as strongly as possible, steelman the other. I like to think of a metaphor of my mind as like a coliseum, and the ideas are the gladiators, and I'm just the guy, the Caesar, who just does thumb up or down, right? And like I'm just let them do their thing, and you should be able to act as strongly as possible for one idea and then the other. Don't let ideas have you, but let you have ideas. And that's kind of an important, I think this is kind of the rationality sum up. So have a means of correction and so on.
Yeah, so very important. You try not, what you do to create knowledge is you try to falsify your theories.
Yeah,
like
not prove.
You look at your theories and like the things you believe, and you try to find experiments that can prove those theories wrong, and you do those experiments. It doesn't matter, like you don't try to find experiments that prove your theories right or anything. You try to specifically like find the things you believe in and try to find critical experiments that would prove them wrong. And if they are proven wrong, you have to find a new theory that accounts for this.
Yeah, or not just experiments, just like philosophical arguments. Just like
yes, exactly. Just try to disprove what you believe. All the time. And don't be like, oh no, now my idea is broken. Like, no, just got smarter.
Yeah, you just got better. Like,
yes.
So just treating problems as they're like opportunities hidden in workloads, like it's amazing. Like now I really love problems because I'm like, oh, that's an area where I can improve upon.
Yes.
Like for instance, you found out with the high blood pressure. That is lovely. That is like the best shit ever.
Yes.
Because now you can.
Now I can improve upon it.
Yeah.
Like even if it feels shit, like yes, I can find a solution.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in general, like the framework of problem and solutions is very useful for like I see it now everywhere. As in, a good business is about solving customers' problem, and a product is a solution that solves the customer problem. And there's a bunch of things like this everywhere. Yeah. I think that would be kind of it.
That was it for epistemology, the longest and most discussed part of the four theories of David Deutsch by far. Like literally nearly all our discussions are about that.
Yeah.
Now let's go to quantum physics. There's not a lot to debate there. It's more about listing what about the findings.
Yeah, what David believes in.
Yes.
So basically it starts, the quantum physics is about the question whether light is a wave or a particle. So a wave you can think of is a sound. So sound is not the air moving from my mouth into Elias's ear, but it's just the vibrations of the air. And they kind of prolong over the long distance. So maybe radio waves would also be one wave. It's just the vibrations of things, and there are electromagnetics waves like for radio, or just the vibration of the air like with sound. Okay. Now a particle is just, imagine if for anyone watching this is a particle. This is just a ball of things, and you just imagine it being very small. So a particle is just a very small ball, like a billiard ball, right? So a wave is spread out in the like it's spread out. So when you have a radio wave, you can't say at which one specific point is the radio wave. At which one specific point is the sound when I say this to you, right? It's spread out through the air, and as in the radio wave is also spread out through the air as an electromagnetic wave, right? A particle is entirely different story. It is in a very specific place in time, right? It's like right here, right now. Okay, so when I throw it to you, we know where it is exactly. Okay, so basically Einstein is here all along also. He basically, he has an experiment, and which is kind of a bit outside of the books that David talked about, but it's important build-up. He has an experiment showing that basically if the light was a wave, then one thing would happen. If light is a particle, then then the other thing happens. We observe the experiment. It acts as if light is a particle. So everyone was like, he received actually a Nobel Prize for this and not for general relativity, which is funny. So, okay, based on that experiment, light is a particle. Now, everyone was like, okay, cool. So light is made out of like small things of things. Now, what happened then, and it's called a photoelectric effect. What happened then is that we had another experiment called double slit experiment. So basically, imagine a phone, and you can
a phone, a wall.
A wall, yeah, fair. An opaque barrier, a slit. an opaque barrier, and you make two slits from it. So two holes through which the light can pass on to, I don't know, our light detector on the other side. And then you put a flashlight through those, like you just shine the flashlight through this opaque barrier and those two holes. And what you'll see is that instead of, and on your light detector, is that you won't get what you would expect to get is just like two striped patterns, because you'll have two holes which are kind of two parallel slits. So what you'd expect to see is that the shadow of this will be just two equal parallel slits on the other side. What you get is a weird thing, but not to the extent we're going to go with quantum physics right now, where you get striped. So there are like, if you put two holes, you get kind of like, imagine 5 stripes of light. Okay, that's a bit weird, because how we came from 2 slits to 5.
Like some dark spots, some light spots. Like
yes.
Weird.
Yeah, so it's a stripe as in like light, no light, light, no light, light, no light. Kind of like straight lines, okay? That's weird. So what would happen if we put 2 more slits? So instead of, we have 2 slits now, we're going to put 2 more to it. What happens is that instead of, you'd expect, well, okay, more light is going to pass by.
Probably more light spaces. That's what you guess.
Yeah. What happens is not more light spaces, but actually less light. So what happens, instead of 5 stripes, you get actually only 3 when you put 4 holes. So you add 2 more holes for light to pass by, and you get 2 less shadows. So there are 2 places on the light detector which go dark when you add 2 more holes for light to pass by. Now, let's make sure that whatever darkens those two slits is light. So what you do is you put an opaque barrier in those 2 slits, new slits that you have added. So you put something opaque, okay? Like, I don't know, a carbon would be fine because the light doesn't go through carbon. And you look, okay, if I put carbon on those 2 things and I shed light from it, will I get a 3 or 5 stripe pattern? You get, again, 5, as you would get if you have just 2 holes. And if you put diamond, and I mean, clearly light passes through diamond, but not a lot of other matter passes through diamond. If you put diamond, you get again 3. If you put some very complex shapes of mirrors, so eventually it will reach the 2 holes like light would, you would still get 3 patterns. So whatever is passing through those 2 other holes that we have added behaves like light, okay? Not like any other matter. Now, an explanation for why we would see this weird stripe pattern is to say, okay, maybe it's a wave, and maybe light somehow interferes with each other. Somewhere it constructs, and then somewhere it destructs, and then that's why we get those stripes, right? Light, no light, light, no light. That might be one explanation, because that's exactly how waves work. And everyone was like, wait, but we just had the experiments where photoelectric, and we had just one photon. We had the I spoiled it. We had the light being just as a particle, right? So that would add up, because light can't be at the same time light, particle, and wave, because those 2 are mutually exclusive. It's one way or the other. And now most of quantum physicists, sadly, teach that it is 2 things at once, but these are mutually exclusive. Like, you go against basic logic and basic reason when you say, oh no, there are 2 things at once, because they're mutually exclusive. Like, something cannot be, if something is, it's mutually exclusive. I don't want to be specific.
You don't have to explain,
Yeah. So, if it's wave, then there's just a bunch of photons are kind of like billiard balls hitting upon each other and causing the stripe interference pattern. Stripe pattern, right? So what would happen if we send just 1 photon? If we send 1 photon, nothing passes through but this photon, so it shouldn't interfere with each other. So we'll have no stripes, but just maybe 2 proper slits or 4 proper slits, any way we decide. And we can also put detectors on the holes, on the slits. So if you put detectors on each of those holes and start passing by the photon, you never see more than 1 detector go off at the same time. So it means that photon just passes through one of the holes and never touching any other. So it doesn't split and then reemerges. It's just always one. It's very it's very sensitive. So none of this can happen. So we definitely can tell when we send 1 photon, it passes through 1 hole and it goes on to the light detector. So
Light detector.
Yeah, light detector. Like, or no, sorry,
I
it goes
heard
to the
lie detector. No.
no. Yeah. Okay. So let's send that. If we send that one photon from a bunch of times, because it's going to be just like a dot. It's not going to be like a stripe, but a dot because it's just one photon. So you have to send like hundreds of those photons. You send them and like one at a time. You send them, and eventually what you find is a bit disturbing because you get the same fucking stripes. So you get again either the 3 parts if it's 2 holes, or the 5 parts if it's 2 holes, or the 3 parts if it's 4 holes. That is confusing because what is passing through the light if we like what is going on, right? So yeah, I a bit spoiled because imagine now you put, so you have, imagine 4 slits, and when you send a photon, we know for a fact that it passes from one of the slits and then it gets to the light and gets the pattern we can see with 4 slits. And yet, if we put an opaque barrier to one of those 2, so let's say we put something opaque on one of those 4 holes, right, to the other 2 we have added, we put something opaque and we send the photon, we know the photon still passes from one or the other and nothing else has ever passed through the other holes, and yet we start seeing the pattern we'd see with two lines. So something is passing through those 2 other holes. So let's say we take out the cardboard and we start sending photons, and they're like, oh, again, the 3 pattern, the 4 pattern slits. Yeah, there's a lot of numbers. But basically, something is passing through those 2 slits. We don't know what exactly it is, but it behaves like light, it acts like light, yet we can never detect it. The detector would never go on in more than one of the places. So something we cannot observe is passing through those 2 slits, and it behaves like light because it passes through diamond, the mirrors, and everything. And yet, our detectors wouldn't go off for it. So that is literally the most succinct explanation I can ever provide. So David says, well, okay, maybe if it acts like photon, it is a photon. Maybe it's a photon we cannot see. And there is a bunch of other experiments, like for instance, Mach-Zehnder interferometer, which is also a quantum physics experiment where you also send one photon, and kind of the only way to explain what you observe, why the experiment is like this and not like this, is to have a very unique explanation, which we'll get into in a second. But you can see with already knowing epistemology part where you have a problem. Our current physics don't really explain why would the pattern of light be like this, or why in Mach-Zehnder interferometer we'll never observe. So there are 2 detectors and we never observe one of them go off. So why would that detector never go off, right? Or so this is kind of what creates a problem.
Wait,
for
but the detectors, they go off different each time, right? Like
no, there's always one specific. With Mach-Zehnder interferometer, yeah.
Yes.
It's like always one goes off, the other one never goes off. And according to our normal physics, it should be 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a problem, and we know when you have a problem, you need to guess a solution. So we need to have someone explain what passes through the other 2 slits that we cannot observe, or in Mach-Zehnder interferometer, what goes through the other path that causes the interference. That is what it is. That's why it's all about interference. That causes the interference to cause the change in the output, right? So the guy called Hugh Everett, and David subscribed to him basically entirely, wrote a paper saying that, it is, what it's passing through is a photon, yet just a photon we cannot see. It's kind of like a shadow photon. And it passes by and it actually intervenes with its counterpart photon, and that causes the
interference pattern.
Yeah, the interference pattern, and that causes the one detector to go off, the other detector to never go off. And that's kind of the only way you can explain why detectors go off without like some woohoo things. Now, to be very clear, this requires Brett Hall has like 8 hours part series on all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sum it up in 10 minutes. But the point is, we can't explain why photons behave they are in the way that our physics has. We need a solution to it. a professional physicist propose a solution to it, and other professional physicists who want literally everything there is to win in physics, which is David, says, yeah, that makes sense. And so how do we know now? Because most of the other physicists, so there is kind of a debate in quantum physics, kind of, where most of community is like, okay, no, it's not the other photons, it's just that photon is a wave, actually not a particle, and that something happens, we don't really understand it, but it's a wave. The other ones are like, no, we understand it entirely, it's a single particle which has a bunch of other so imagine with every single photon you send, there is a bunch of an infinity of other shadow photons coming along with it and causing the interference pattern, or the interference that we observe with detectors and so on. So these are kind of two sides of the debate. And how do we now distinguish between those two sides of the debate? Well, we criticize. And it's a long story why, for instance, the multiverse explained it far better than the other. But there's just a bunch of criticisms that you have for normal explanation that why light is a wave that multiverse solves, right? And what it goes on to say is that, well, it's actually not it's not just with photons, because we can do the same experiments but with atoms and the same shit would happen, right? So it's happening with photons as with atoms.
What?
Yeah.
So we can send atoms shoot them through the double slit.
Yeah, it's very small, and they kind of just don't know what exactly from which of the two they'll pass by, but you can detect them and you can see all the same with atoms.
Damn, and they also interfere with themselves.
Yes.
Shadow versions of themselves.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay.
So it is. So it all starts to add up, where you're like, okay, it's not just photons that might have shadow counterparts. It's also the atoms that have shadow counterparts, and so on.
So you have a shadow counterpart.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, wait. So universe is built out of photons and atoms, and then you're like, well, okay, if it works. So the leap that most people are scared to make is to say, okay, this might explain it well for the double slit experiment or the Mach-Zehnder interferometer. There's atoms and there's photons, very great. Okay, fair. But what Hugh Everett did is to extrapolate this and say, well, you're made out of atoms and photons. Everything is made out of atoms and photons. So there are universes that basically our universe has an infinite number of shadow counterparts, which we cannot see. And actually altogether, it's called one big multiverse. And this is kind of the extrapolation which people are scared of, because they're like, so you're telling me the reality is made out of me and aliases and infinite number of me's and aliases having other podcasts at the same time, which we cannot really see, but we have to add them as an explanation because of some small little experiments. Yeah, that's the thing. And it does not violate Occam's razor, because it is not about adding on the assumptions, because every new universe is not an additional assumption. The whole explanation is just clean. There are additional shadow parts to every atom or photon, and they just go along, and that's it.
And that's necessary to explain this. Or
yeah.
It's an explanation that works with this. So it's like a positive evidence, which the double slit experiment is bad, makes most theories fall, because most theories can't explain it.
Yeah.
But this theory can explain it.
Yes.
So, and you can't just take the multiverse away, because then it wouldn't, that's what the theory is built on. So it's necessary. So it's not just
it's added stuff. Wanted to say, everyone is made out of infinite number of universes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what are the implications of this idea? Again, I do no justice here. We do no justice to the idea. You need to properly research it for yourself. Brett Hall has a great series. I would watch that, to be honest. And then maybe read some David, because he has tough.
Even then.
Yeah, I would start with reading second chapter of Fabric of Reality, because that was super hit for me, because I was like, whoa, that makes sense. Why? What is passing through this other slit that we cannot detect, and it acts like light? Fuck. And then I would do the part that's Brett has. They're great. And then maybe read the multiverse chapter. Okay. So what are the implications of this all? This means that besides our own universe, there is a huge number of other shadow counterparts universe to ourselves, which we cannot really observe or cannot see. But in shadows, in minor details, in minor things, it also influences us as it influences like small particles. Okay, so what are the implications of it? That means that, okay, first of all, that it's an entire universe. There's an entire universe besides ourselves. And then the question would be like, okay, what is the number of those universes? Is it like 1,000, 1,000,000, a Google number? Like what are we talking about? How many of those shadow universes are to our own universe? Well, first of all, you have to acknowledge that there's kind of no real difference between those. Like, it's just your conscious observes one. Like you're just now in this in one of this universe, but how? Like, what differentiates this between the shadow universes? David says basically nothing really. And so in this double slit experiment, if you remember, there were like kind of stripes, and the light or the photon could arrive at one of the stripes. So David says that basically photon arrives at every stripe there is, but you just get to observe one of them. And it's explained by entanglement information, which you can go on to research more. But basically, the shadows and the atoms interfere where everything is exactly the same. And it works for small scale things, but when you extrapolate it into big scale things, yeah, I mean, the interference between the
cancels out because it's infinite, or
it just does not happen because it's bigger objects, and bigger objects are less likely to be exactly the same as smaller objects.
Because all the interference inside them cancels out, or how? Like it's like noise. Like if you have super much noise, then in the end it cancels out. Like if I have a message that gets corrupted each time I send it. Like okay, so let's say I send like a text message to you, and each time, like when I send it to you, one letter gets like switched. Mm-hmm. If I send it to you 20 times, you will know the exact message because you just see like, okay, like on average, this was always an N, so it's an N. Like, so the noise cancels out. And the same would be with interference. Like if I have like super much interference, yes. On average, like if I have a really big object with a lot of interference, on average, it's gonna have no effect because on average, like everything is pushing in a different direction. So in the end, it's like
yeah, and yes. Yeah, that makes sense why you wouldn't observe just like some chaos or something.
Yes.
Because with multiverse, if photon arrives at every place of the slit and you just get to observe one, then basically, okay, you again extrapolate that you're like, okay, it works the same with atoms, and then actually everything that is physically possible has happened somewhere in the multiverse. So like someone comes out right now through this door and shoots both of us, or like it's all, I don't know, the fire alarm goes off because it's all just physically possible. But the question is how likely it is to happen. And there's also the probabilities that you assign to, let's say, the slits, or where you'll see them in the pattern, right? So it's like super probability based, and that's why quantum physics is like known for being very probabilistic, and you can't really tell where exactly the photon will arrive out of those possibilities, but you know that it will never be here because the probability is 0. And then if we send those photons long enough, we'll find the pattern of that. It arrives here 20%, here 40%, and here 20%, and so on. Okay, so basically, with the multiverse, then it would be like, okay, everything that is physically possible, you just imagine every physically possible event somewhere along this distribution of probabilities, and then just some are more likely than others, and that's how it is. So it's just unlikely that now the fire alarm will go off or someone will come here and shoot us. And that's why you don't really see a lot of chaos, because you're just kind of usually going through the average type of things happening. I do, again, no justice to the whole idea, but like there are some crazy violations, for instance, implications of the idea. For instance, like every fiction that doesn't violate laws of physics is a fact in the multiverse. So someone can write a fiction about Taylor Swift having a romance with Pope Francis. Yeah, and they're just going on to Roman holiday. and there's no laws of physics that has been violated by saying all that. So next time when Taylor Swift comes up, there are some universes where Pope Francis all of a sudden decides to end his religion career and just
celibacy, yes.
yeah, and go on with Taylor to Roman holiday or something, and Taylor also falls in love with him, because there is nothing physically impossible in all of that, and you just can imagine that those bigger objects are just the same thing on the probability line, and it's just very unlikely.
But so much more unlikely, because all the noise normally cancels out in most of the universes, right? Like it's okay. It's like super unlikely that stuff like this happens. Like it's very far. Like
it's super unlikely.
Yeah.
Super unlikely.
Yeah.
And that's how we can judge and rationalize. So it's not that everything random happens, but there are some things that are more likely to happen than others, and there are some just reasons for it and so on. Because, how do you really explain how Taylor fell in love with Pope and Pope decided to end his career and so on? One explanation could be, just a bunch of neuron misfirings. All the time. For them, like for weeks, just neuron misfirings, which is super unlikely. But neuron misfirings happen. Like this just happens.
Yeah.
So I can all of a sudden, in
super weird cascade of neuron misfiring.
Yeah. So there are universes where now all of a sudden we start speaking Mandarin without ever knowing it, and it would be like, it's just neuron misfirings that go along, and with every additional neuron misfiring is less and less likely, and so on. But it happens somewhere, which is super weird.
Yes,
to say the least.
It sounds so unbelievable. Like literally, like no way that there's all this happening right now. But or not right now.
But okay, you just have to go research it and judge for your own, because you can't rely on authority, right? If it really matters for you, David is a prominent physicist, and there are a bunch of other prominent physicists saying it's not true. So how do you decide who's right or who's wrong?
Yeah, the thing is, like stuff like the double slit experiment, you can actually do it at home. Like you can literally, like I saw a YouTube video of like a woman like that did it herself, and like that's super cool. Like you can literally do it. And what David says now, the explanation with the multiple universes, it's not that the double slit experiments proves this. Like the whole thing we talked about is like it's just that this is a possible explanation.
Yes.
That we have to try to disprove. Like and it's a quite a good explanation, because it explains something that most theories just don't explain. Like because most theories don't have really an explanation for the double slit experiment. Yes.
Yep. So the only way you can judge whether to trust this or not is to go research on your own and decide whether the explanation makes sense, try to criticize it, and so on.
Try to come up with a better one. Like
Very
open for better explanations.
Yeah, because there's clearly a better explanation, as with any theory we have, we just haven't found it. So what are the implications? Well, one thing is that anything that is physically possible has happened somewhere and will happen. So in your, like a real thing for you would be, regardless where you are, if there is no law of physics saying you can't do something, not only, you can do it, but there is some parts of the multiverse that you have done it in. So regardless of how hard it is, if it's physical, if laws of physics don't prohibit it, it has happened somewhere in the multiverse, and you can be that guy who has done it. So like, I don't know, if a billionaire, if you want to be a billionaire and it's like very hard or so on, just know that in some parts of the multiverse that has happened and you're a billionaire and you can be part of it. Like it's not like every time it's like, I heard. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you just can become a millionaire, because like you can't influence that your neurons misfire in the right way for you to become a millionaire. Like, you can try hard, but that doesn't mean that you will become a millionaire.
Yes.
If the millionaire thing happens through neuron misfirings, or like you have the wrong neuron misfirings or stuff, like
there is some levels of luck to it and so on.
Yeah.
Right, but like,
it's some levels of luck, like
a lot.
Is there even agency? Like,
we're not no free will talk.
Not the topic right now. But
But I don't know, it just puts kind of all those, oh my God, those people, you know, or something. It just really grounds up anything you want to do in your life. You're like, yeah, I mean, it's possible. Like, it's physically possible. Somewhere it has happened. Why not by me, right?
It's funny, like, it's a nice way to like interpret this, because you could also just say like, well, everything happens so nothing matters.
Yes,
like,
yes,
like
absolutely.
You could say, well, everything happens so everything is possible. That's your like interpretation. Other people would say like, oh, everything happens so nothing matters.
Yeah.
So like I can just shoot myself because like, well, it doesn't matter because it happened anyway.
There is a funny one where so you basically take a lottery and you kill yourself if you don't win the lottery. And it's like, I don't know, automated or something. You don't wake up. You go to sleep and you don't wake up if the lottery doesn't win. So in all of the universes where you are still alive, you won a lottery.
Fuck yeah.
Yes, like it's a great idea.
Well, you just go to sleep and you know in some universes I'm going to wake up and win the lottery.
Yeah, and win the lottery. Yeah,
and
so
you're not going to wake up.
you won't see some of those, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but I would still say something like, no, your still personal suffering matters.
Okay, yes.
And then, like, at least
for
me,
no explanation.
Huh?
Just out of your feeling. You say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to discuss about morals now, but like,
yeah.
I don't see the. I live like it matters. I don't see the argument that it matters. But yeah. Let's not.
Yeah,
let's not
different time.
Yes, quantum physics, yes.
Yeah. So that would be literally the quantum physics parts of his two books. Now you have to add computers to the gist and computation, because it's like a.
So theory number 3, computation.
Yeah. So what is computation? So computation is, the simplest way I could define it is that it's calculating an output from input. That's it. And you calculate it by following some rules. Okay, now this what your computer does when, I don't know, you want to do some math with it, you have an input of, let's say, 5 plus 5. Now your computer just follows some algorithm, some rules that already have been predefined to calculate that, okay, I have to change, here are some binary changes I have to make, and that's 10, right? So that's what your computer does, your phone does, and so on. The ChatGPT does, your input is your prompt. It calculates the output by the weights it has, and then here's your output. Okay, cool. Now, if you take this definition seriously, then pretty much nearly everything is a computer. Like, a tree is a computer. I was so stunned by it. Like, it took me days, and I was listening to
Please explain.
Yeah. I was listening to podcasts and they were just like, yeah, tree is a computer. And they wouldn't explain it. And I would get so mad. I'm like, how is tree a computer, guys? This is not fucking obvious. So tree is a computer because its input is like soil and, I don't know, sun and anything else that takes the tree to grow. Its calculation that it does is, its algorithm is its genes, which we'll talk about in evolution, which says, okay, if you get this, you do this, and so on, and then the output is the tree growing.
Yes, like the thing is, it's so weird because a computer, you would think that a computer is just like, it feels like you just have a broader definition of computer, and now you're like, wow, everything is a computer. Just I define it like this. Like, okay, I define that a human is everything that breathes. So now, after this definition, a squirrel is a human.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, crazy new
Yeah.
But yeah, so it feels kind of weird to think like this.
Yeah, but not everything is a computer. That's the beauty part, right? Like a rock is not a computer.
Yeah, obviously. Like
rock has no input, rock has no algorithm it follows, and rock has no output. So that also, like, it's a big class of things that are computers, but not everything. Mm-hmm. All the animals are computers. You are a computer. You have a brain and genes. Your input is whatever you receive from reality. Your brain computes it, and it spits out an output, which is whatever you do or whatever you think.
Is like one of my cells is also a computer, right?
Yeah.
Like just one single cell. Okay, then if I have, can we think of something super simple if it's a computer? I put like maybe yes, okay. So I have a bunch of sand with like some rocks in between, and then I have like one of those, how do you call it, like the thing with many little holes in it, like where small things can fall through big things don't.
Yeah.
Like
in Russian, it's sito.
Yeah, in German it's Sieb. I don't know. So we don't know the English one. Yeah. So you put it in there, and like you put the sand in there, you shake it, and then like the small sand falls through. Is it a computer?
Who is the computer part?
Like the input is like the sand with different sizes, and the output is the sand in the one size.
No, because this would be the entire universe on its own, just simulating what is happening. So
but why is that not a computer? Because it also has an input and output.
The zip part. The zip.
Yes.
Or the sand.
No, this. Like the input is the sand, like the mixed sand, and the output is the filtered sand, and the filter is the computer. Is the filter the computer? Because like it has an input, it has an output. I don't know. Like I just came up with this.
Yeah, I'm also thinking that's funny.
Okay, we can also.
No, it's okay. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a computer. I would just say that this is what laws of physics do when you pass things.
But isn't what laws of physics do what a tree does? Isn't laws of physics do what I do? Isn't laws of physics do what
laws of physics
what
go
my
very
MacBook
far.
does is also what laws of physics do.
Yeah, laws of physics go very far.
Like in the end.
So you can say like what if you throw your input is, let's say you pick up a rock and you throw it down the water, and the output is a splash, and then a rock is a computer.
Yes, exactly. Also, okay, let's say we have a logic gate, like a thing you have, like you have two inputs and one output, and like it only gives like it's like the output is only turned on if both inputs, like if you have input on both, it's like an AND gate. I don't know if you know how it works. No. Like okay, you have like two input things and one output signal. If both input signals are activated, the output signal is activated. Yeah, so is that a computer?
Well, it really depends on what is happening, I think, in it. Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's a...
Like, it needs the threshold. I don't know, like, it's because... Like, where's the point where the computer starts? Like, where the rock stops and the computer starts? Because if I look at a computer, I could break it down, and like, and at some point, it's not a computer anymore. Like,
just laws of physics.
Because like, is this now like a kind of useful heuristic, or is it really like, is it really fundamental knowledge about reality? This computer, or is it just like, it's useful to call stuff a computer? Yeah.
No, the point with the rock might be fair. I always, when I thought of it, I would be just like, no, it's just so. When you think of, I mean, the entire universe is a computer. Okay, that is definitely the useful part. Universe is a clearly computer because it has an input of Big Bang. It calculates what happens by laws of physics, and I would say the zip part with sand or the rock falling into the water would be just laws of physics calculating, like some simple computations happening inside the universe, but the rock themselves would not be a computer was in it. So you can think of when you have some code, the words in syntax won't be the computer themselves, but the function would be. So for instance, if something x equals 1, do this. This is a function. This is a computer in its own. So I would call it something like a tree. That would be kind of a computer.
But does this function really exist, or is it in the end just like it's just like rocks bouncing off of each other, and like
even further down the line, right? You would say it's just like atoms bouncing.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe, but the useful part is like, it's okay if even a rock is a computer, but the useful part comes from seeing the universe as a computer, and the output is again the universe calculating its own depth or something.
Okay,
like
explain this. Yes.
Yeah. So because Turing has, and David talks about it a lot, Turing has created a theory of computation, and he has shown that it is possible to create a computer that can compute anything that is computable. That sounds very funny. But it basically means that a bunch of math and computation theory can work for the universe itself and for the laws of physics. And you can see a bunch of laws of physics explained through the computation theory, and that unlocks a bunch of useful things. Yeah.
So there are computers that can't calculate everything. Such a pretentious question. That's what I didn't know. But
Yeah.
Yes, explain.
Yeah, so it's basically like universality of computation. So what it means is that if you give a computer, so it's Turing complete or Turing incomplete. So if you give a computer enough memory and time, will it be able to compute any computable function? Will it be able to calculate any computable function? You'll really have to research a bit more on the computable function part. Yeah, but basically there are some things which will never be able to compute some functions, regardless of how much memory, regardless of infinite memory and time. And for instance, the computer, your phone or the laptop we're listening this through, if you just figure out a way to add more memory to them and give them as much time as you want, right? Obviously we're arguing in the limit and not, like, it wouldn't really work because like even universe will eventually end. Where actually there is a bunch of theories on what happens to the universe. We're not sure, but it will be able to compute any function there is. So, for instance, if the universe is a computer, it is computing some functions, and then you can actually simulate on your computer the entire process that happened in the universe. But if you take your calculator, for instance, like a simple calculator is Turing incomplete. So regardless of how much memory or time you give to your simple calculator, it won't be able to simulate, I don't know, the entire universe or just even the computer itself that is run upon. Because Turing complete thing can have some Turing incomplete like programs in it. So your computer has a program of calculator is Turing incomplete. Your computer is kind of Turing complete in the limit, and Turing incomplete thing cannot have inside of it something Turing complete, because then it becomes Turing complete because it can simulate the Turing complete thing. This is a tough thing to.
So I don't know. Like if we really said that what Turing complete means, being able to calculate any function. Yes, I think you said that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Turing complete is calculating any function that is computable, and you can apply laws of physics to it, and it becomes to make even more sense. Where you're like, laws of physics say what is computable and what is not, right? So something is physically impossible, like going faster than the speed of light, then it is uncomputable. So going faster than the speed of light, according to our best laws of physics, is impossible, therefore it's uncomputable function. Anything that involves going faster than the speed of light isn't computable.
But I can compute, I don't know, a movie where they go.
Yeah, but it's not really a thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just like something that looks like it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, and then, so computers in general are just about seeing what happens in reality and trying to figure out how to use the process that happen in reality to do some useful things for us. And then David was like, okay, what if we actually use the quantum physics and the interference and basically quantum computer would be just Mach-Zehnder interferometer, or for simplicity of it, imagine just a double slit experiment and just a bunch of double slit experiments repeated a lot of times. And when we just send one photon, we just see where it ends up, and we can use this as a computer, as a way to compute, because it would use all the other universe counterparts to figure out where the photon will appear. And you can use this to basically help yourself to do a bunch of computations. So what happens is that instead of using just one universe, quantum computers use infinite number of universe, or
So fucking interesting, man. Like
that is quite a thing, and that's why it's way more effective, right? There are just some things where it would take you more than the time of the universe to figure out, and with quantum computer, like 11 minutes or something. And there is like a famous thing called Shor's algorithm. So basically all our entire cryptography nowadays is based on the fact that if you multiply, I forgot.
Prime numbers or something?
Yeah, multiplying two big numbers is easy. Factorizing them is hard.
Yeah.
And this is all what, factoring them is hard. And this is all what crypto is about. So it takes a lot of time. And with quantum computers, it's like, 11 minutes to factor them.
To break the hardest code, whatever.
Yes. So that's why quantum computation field on its own is so closed up. And no one really knows how well everyone is doing, is because once they do really well, they can kind of break everything there is. All our cryptography systems.
What to do then? Because we have to figure out
something
better.
They'll just figure out.
We have to, but in between time.
Yeah.
Like
you'll have to rethink a bunch of cryptography.
Yes, exactly.
A bunch, yeah.
Yes.
And so just for your knowledge, there's kind of like, I think, a few hundreds of qubits, and basically imagine a normal computer with bytes, and there are quantum computers now with qubits, and they're kind of 0 and 1 at the same time. And I won't try to exactly explain what this means because it takes... Yeah. But there are like hundreds of them, and
I think like not specifically the quantum computing part, which is super interesting, but like I don't know enough about it. But also in general, like this computation theory is like very far away. Like for example, epistemology is super easy for me to discuss about it. Just like I feel like because it's so logical. It's just like philosophy, like some logic thinking. I'm like, no, this theory doesn't make sense because of, I don't know, like this experiment I can think of. But like if I think about like computation and like, wow, it's really far away. Like also like quantum physics, you can't really discuss because like
quantum physics is everything that is physical possible has happened somewhere. Cool. Like what for me?
Yeah, exactly. There's like also there's such a big difference in stuff like that actually needs like experiments and stuff and really deep knowledge compared to like some philosophy like epistemology,
where is just like a good argument is done.
which is so easily accessible for everyone, like
low entry barrier.
Exactly, because it's just like logical thinking, and you're like, no, this doesn't make sense.
But I would honestly say that computation is also, I did not expect it to be as impactful as I thought it would be.
Okay.
For my I don't know. There's I don't know. It's just computation seems quite useful because you just understand that, they're just, there's a famous saying that all computation is about just, computation we do is just going along with the universe and just getting on the ride with it and just somehow nurturing the universe that we can take some useful part that it does naturally. And like, for instance, with the quantum computers and where the photon will arrive, the photon will arrive there regardless. Like it will happen just by laws of physics, but we can figure out somehow, set it up so it actually does something useful to us. And whole computation is about.
Yeah, that's a cool way of seeing it, because like this quantum interference, quantum entanglement, like it happens all the time, like everywhere.
Yes.
Like just this second, it happens like infinitely often.
Yeah.
And we could also just have a computer in the middle where it happens, and like
which does something actually.
Yeah, exactly. It would happen anyway, and we would actually have some useful
shit to do with it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Damn. Life.
Yeah, where I'm thinking, but kind of the nail in the coffin of the whole computation part is that the Shor's algorithm we talked about, right? So I'm sure I wasn't convincing enough about the multiverse theory and everything, but just try to. So there is a Shor's algorithm that says that, so theoretically it works, right? And what happens is that if you run it, the number of things like you have to use, like just the computation itself takes more atoms than there are in our visible universe. And it happens like in the lab somewhere, right? Theoretically.
And as soon as we have this, we have a proof that we have figured out quantum computing.
We clearly, people who hold on to a single universe theory would have absolutely no ground to stand upon, because you'll ask.
It would be like a decisive.
Yeah, it would be super decisive.
Like it's like the thing with Einstein and Newton.
Yeah,
It's like
yes, the same level.
yes.
So
Unless somebody comes up with a super good explanation,
even better,
yeah,
and we know
yeah.
more. Perfect.
Yeah.
But the point is, the question is like, okay, so there is some computation that happens in a lab, which takes more atoms than that are in our visible universe. So where is the computation happening, right? Because at the end of it, computation is about just like, okay, here is 1, here is 0, like 1 0 1 0 0, and now there kind of some change and so on, right? So you can do computations on atoms. Well, that's where you do them. So theoretically, it takes more atoms than there are in our visible universe and works just well. There's no problems in theory. Now, when we'll have the computer that does it well and everything works, then like the obvious question is like, okay, where the computation has been done? Where did it take all the atoms if it's not the parallel universes, the different universe out there? And actually, then the multiverse theory is again perfectly suited well to explain it. Yeah, it is other instances of you. Let's say we have a quantum computer. It's other instances sitting somewhere out there, Mark and Liz, who are exactly the same up to atom, who are able to use the computer in exact the same ways and get slightly different results. So we'll start differentiating. But at the end of the day, we'll get all the useful information we need from each other. So we'll use all those
copies of ours.
Yes.
Yes.
So that would be kind of the most decisive criticism for single view universe ever. And yeah. Now the evolution
But it isn't there. Like there's no computer that solves Shor's algorithm.
I haven't looked at it. I know that like in theory that it works all well and there is no problem there. But I think if I would have known if there is already a computer that does it. Like, but again, it's such a close-up theory.
They don't tell. Like,
they don't really tell. No, like some people say, oh yeah, we have hundreds of qubits, and others are like, yeah, we have 12.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very close also because like it's
cryptography. Yes.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
But it would be the most decisive criticism ever. And there is a bunch of problems why the quantum computers are never yet started. Like they always it's 5 years from launching.
What is not started?
The quantum computer field being prominent and being succeeding and so on is because it's just very hard to make it. So that there is not noise which fucks up the whole computation. It's just really hard to cancel out noise. If to explaining out.
Yeah, they have it super cool and dark and everything. Yeah. Never mind. Okay, let's go to evolution. Last part.
Yes, the evolution. So evolution is kind of the easy part. So there are basically. So first of all, let's use evolution and epistemology. Evolution has a problem that it has to. Well, we don't really know what exact problem evolution is solving, but at least that it has to replicate and it has to create an organism that survives and replicates itself, right? Kind of self-preserves and so on. So how does evolution would do it? Well, it has guesses and it criticizes them, and the guesses that work survive. That is literally what happens there.
In the most purest form.
Yes. So basically all the living organism have some level of have DNA, and this DNA say what happens to them, what doesn't not do, what they do and not do, right? And then DNA are guesses about what will work in niches. In some niches, let's say you're in the forest and you have a DNA of a bird that says, oh, it will have long beak, big, wings and so on. It will nest and try to do things like this and not like that. And then we go out and test the assumption that evolution makes of like, okay, this animal will survive and self-preserve itself. And some of them, those that actually survive, are kind of passing the test, passing the criticism, and the others die. And this loop repeats upon itself like thousands of times. So that is how evolution creates knowledge about which organisms will survive or not. And kind of the David makes a stand that this is the only knowledge that evolution makes. So when you look out in animals, they won't have more knowledge created with them, and that humans create a unique type of knowledge he calls explanatory knowledge, where we can think creatively with our thoughts and make things that evolution wouldn't be able to make.
So we can criticize our thoughts. Evolution can just criticize tries. Like,
Yes.
it has to make experiment with every idea.
Yeah.
Like, we can, in our head, criticize our ideas.
Yes.
Evolution has to run the experiment
Yes.
and fail and run it again and
Yes.
fail
And
until there's randomly an experiment that doesn't fail.
Yes. And it does so blindly, right?
Yeah.
So, and we might have some, I want to research machine learning and epistemology and see how induction is related to it all. We can kind of make guesses in a very specific fields. Evolution just, some part of the genome will be changed and we'll see how it goes, and it's kind of random. And David would say that we can also leap over, so we can just, our ideas can die in place. So I don't need to die myself to change some of the ideas. So I might think, I don't know, that celestial sphere is great. I don't need to die as a person to change my ideas about celestial sphere or about Newtonian physics. But with evolution, no. Like, my ideas are literally written in my genome and I cannot change them.
Yeah. So if they're wrong, you have to die. Like,
yeah. Celestial sphere is wrong? Well, great. I have to die then.
Yes. Okay. So was that the main point of evolution, or was there more?
No, there was a bit more, but he was, of course, just kind of retelling it. So there was no real groundbreaking. Okay. I think he has enough groundbreaking ideas. Yeah. But one of the other ones would be that he would say that, so humans are unique, universal explainers, and that animals aren't. So there is something inherently different between humans and animals, like apes and so on. And he would say that basically all the knowledge that an animal would ever have is within its genes, while humans can have additional knowledge by ideas and so on. And this is kind of okay as an explanation, and I would have a lot of problems with it. I think this is kind of my main contra to the whole philosophy, where he would say something like, okay, if you study apes, you can see that they can put a stick, they do termite fishing. So they take stick, they clean it up from leaves and everything. It's a long process. And then they find a good enough stick in the first place, right? Like the one that is like strong but thin also. And then they go and they poke it into termite nests, and the termites bite the stick, and then they take out the stick to eat the termites. That's a long-ass process.
Yes.
Like, that requires quite some thought, I would say. And he would say that, so how does a monkey in the first place has learned this entire complex pattern of behavior? And important part, it's not in their genome. Like, a monkey is not inborn with that idea. It has to learn it from the other tribes of monkeys. So it has to
see it. Yes.
Yes, other monkeys do. A baby monkey has to look at mama monkey do all this entire complex process to then eventually learn it and be able to repeat it herself. So it's a big problem of like, well, what do monkeys use if not creativity to understand how the termite fishing works, then to replicate it?
Couldn't you say that a monkey, like, somehow in his genes is like this wish or this this drive to replicate what he sees other monkeys do, and like one monkey at one point made a good guess, and
that's quite a guess. So that's already some creativity there. So he would
but it could be random guess.
So monkey randomly took a stick, randomly took all the leaves out, and then randomly stick it into the termite nest, and then randomly pick it out and eat it. That's like a lot of randomness. But yes, it's physically possible. So
also it doesn't have to be full on randomness, because like, let's say it's in his genes to, if he sees a stick full of termites, to lick it. Like, so this point is already not random.
But you could say they randomly found a stick that was without the leaves.
No, but why did they start to clean the leaves? Why don't they just take random sticks and like sometimes work, sometimes no? Like, if they just imitate, then they would okay, then it could be like reinforcement learning, like
Yeah.
the stick that is.
So, I mean, basically the main theory he says is that they don't understand. Like, the main debate is about whether monkeys understand, have creative thought or not, because if monkeys have, pretty much all the animals will have to some extent, maybe not to a lot of extent, but some extent. And then you would find out that, oh, well, humans are not that different from other animals. And then, I mean, a bunch of repercussions ethically would come along, because you're like, oh shit,
we're not that special. Yeah.
I mean, oh shit, they also feel things. Probably they're also conscious, whatever consciousness is. They're also conscious, and then
just a bit less.
Yeah, maybe we have to treat them better if they're also conscious. The whole consciousness debate is
not in David's book. Right?
No, but he talks about how we are unique compared to animals,
which would give us the right to.
Yeah, like there are a bunch of theories when you clearly can see where he's like, okay, animals are not that, we're like super cool. Mm-hmm. Because he wants also to talk a lot about how we are unique and amazing in his, let's say, Beginning of Infinity, with which I entirely agree. But I don't think you need to diminish animals to say that. Like, animals can still have creative thought, and that's maybe how monkeys figured out how to do termite fishing in the first place. And so the theory he uses is called behavior parsing, where it's basically a bunch of statistical modeling. So it says that a baby monkey would see its mama monkey first clean up the leaves. And in its genes already are some present movements of cleaning up, or of the movement of the hand that cleans up the leaves. So that it doesn't need to learn because it's already in its genes. So it's not super complex process where it's just like what is new is that maybe it picks up the stick and cleans up the leaves part. So not the movements of the hand, which are quite complex. And then it sees that hundreds of times, and then it sees hundreds of times that afterwards they go to termite places, and then it sees another hundreds of times. And of course it can, in its genes, it knows how to walk and so on. And then its other hundreds of times sees monkeys put the sticks into the termites. And then, of course, just like poking something is in its genes, so it doesn't have to learn the specific poking movement, but just poking into termites. And then taking out the stick, also, again, some part of it is already learned in the genes, and it just has to kind of statistically model all those actions. And because it has seen it hundreds of times, it learns it through kind of this modeling, through parsing behavior into smaller parts, and through a bunch of repetitions, being like, oh, okay, this and this and this and this. But I would still, the decisive criticism I have for not believing in behavior parsing is that,
like what you just explained was behavior parsing. Yeah,
yes, that would be a behavior parsing. The decisive criticism is that how does a monkey know? So David says that a monkey can decide, and he did not create the theory, it was other researcher, prominent researcher in animal behavior and so on. So David says that monkey knows what to focus on, because remember, again, it's a very big contra of like, okay, but there are infinite number of factors. How does the monkey decide to focus on her mother taking out the leaves part, or her mother walking and poking, or afterwards eating it, right? Even if it's seen hundreds of times, David says that it focuses on those actions because they are already in the genes of like taking out the leaves part or the poking part and so on. The decisive criticism for me is that, okay, fair, so the monkey focuses on the actions which are already in his genes. But how does the monkey decide out of all those actions which happen at the same time that are done by her mom at the same time, which all have inside the genes of it, right? So how does it decide to focus on taking out the leaves instead of, let's say, her mom might bite her tongue or bite her lips or just chew just like touch her lips or blink and I don't know, do some face and so on. I mean, you might say, well, monkeys don't do a lot of weird faces, and over hundreds of times they cancel out. Okay, but it blinks all the time. It does this movement with this, like, touches with her tongue, the lips, right? All the time. and the blinking, at least the blinking, happens all the time, and it's in the genes, and the types of sitting she does, and like there are again infinite number of things that, well, okay, maybe not infinite because it's in the genes. But how does the monkey decide that blinking or having your head a bit like this or moving your head a bit like this?
You could say it cancels out. Like this is also, I think that's also the thing about like induction, that you could actually, like if you use it over a longer enough time horizon, all those wrong things that are not really correlated would just cancel out, like would just turn out to be not correlated.
Yeah.
Like no matter how many like things you have to look at some point, like if you look at them long enough, only the ones that really correlate will correlate. Like
really cause each other.
Like, yes, exactly. Or that really, yes, exactly. Like not the like random correlations will like at some point, like in a limit, they will not appear.
Yeah, but the question would be like, how again do you decide what to focus on?
Yes. Yeah, like you just have to choose.
Induction is now just about the part, okay, maybe when we reason, this is like this. I don't think blinking would cancel out.
But blinking to different times, and yes, but also maybe the monkey sees the blinking, and okay, like that's like and like copies it, but also the stick stuff, because like
then they would all blink all the time.
Also maybe not, because like blinking, like that's not the decisive thing that the mother does in that moment. Like blinking, the mother does all the time.
So how does the monkey know that what is important to look at is the movement of hands?
Because the mother never does this movement of hands except in that situation.
So that is already some
underlying theory.
Yeah, I mean that requires
logic.
something.
Yeah.
Right. So this how does the monkey know what to focus on is quite. Like for me, it was kind of like, oof.
It's so much harder to discuss about topics like this
because you
like
really
need you really need to know, like, because like with empiricism, I can just be like, yeah, this argument doesn't make sense. This makes sense. Like I can see it as a non-informed, like, or not so good informed person. Like if you want to discuss about like how monkeys figure out like how to do termite fishing, like holy shit, like there are experts discussing on this, and we don't, like, yeah.
But the point to me at all would be, like, after studying David, is that experts can be wrong. Like when you study epistemology and you really get into nitty gritty, you're like, okay, there are some theories are right, some theories are wrong, and you find out that leading public figures can be wrong about this shit, and you're like, wow.
And it's so funny to read like books and notice, like, when you really know epistemology and be like, well, that's some obvious mistake.
Right here. Come on, man, this does not happen. There's no induction out here. So you also just gain confidence in yourself, where you're like, okay, well, I can actually trust myself. Like I can just think for myself and arrive at some interesting conclusion. So even with behavior parsing, like I have, you have to study on your own if you really care. I was quite interested about it, and I came from not knowing pretty much anything about an animal behavior to studying it for a few days to really reading the papers, which argues for behavior parsing. I'm reading the paper and I'm like, okay, how do you explain this? And there's no explanation for it. So you just think for yourself. You just try to criticize the thing, and you're like, whoa, it works. Like, that's an important belief.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yes.
Nice.
What do we...
So those were all the 4 theories.
I mean, evolution also... Evolution is kind of pretty much everywhere where knowledge is involved. Like, evolution and epistemology is very closely related, because they're pretty much basically the same thing, I would argue. I mean, epistemology... Evolution is epistemology physically embodied.
Yes. It makes sense. Like, you're like this, but also like
there can be some and of course, and the same thing works interestingly with memes or with ideas also. So evolution does not optimize what is important. Point he really outlines is that it doesn't optimize for the best of the species, but for the genes to replicate the most within the population. So if a gene is bad, it would but replicates better than other genes, it will replicate the most, so it will win. In the long run, it will be the one, and all else who are like more useful to species would not work out because they don't replicate as well. So the same holds true for ideas. The ideas that are the most viral, so some ideas are more viral than others, and by no means that means that they're more useful.
It's probably correlated. Like
to a certain extent, it is.
It's more likely that a useful idea is viral than a.
Not sure to what extent.
Why not? Like I would really say that, because like, let's say like of course in the end we see the viral ideas.
Yeah.
But of those, like if we see of the infinite number of ideas one could have.
Yes.
There's only a very, very tiny fraction of those which are actually
useful.
Like actually useful. Exactly.
Yes.
But if we look at the pool of viral ideas, there's a very big fraction of them that is useful. Like at least this fraction is bigger than the fraction of useful ideas in the pool of all ideas.
Yes. Okay.
Like, so I would definitely say that useful ideas are much more likely to go viral. Like go viral, not in the social media sense, but like be spread out and used.
No, but I mean specifically in the social media sense. I mean, spread out.
Okay.
Spread out.
I thought you by viral you just mean like be used by many people. Like
no, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, but also just like kind of quickly start to be useful.
Yeah, but like not specifically like a TikTok, like a TikTok video, not a TikTok video. Like like the idea of, I don't know, like taking creatine.
Yes,
it could be like a viral idea because many people do it. Like
yes.
Even if it's not like crazy that like in some moment suddenly everybody started taking creatine, but like in the health base now, like I think nearly everybody is taking creatine because it's so good for the for the brain and for the muscles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but like, and you can think of like every idea. So he talks about how there are different types. Ideas can spread in different types. So sometimes idea can spread by being useful to others, and sometimes it can spread by kind of abusing the human psyche and all the things that it wants to abuse. So it's kind of not a good idea, but it's really well at abusing viral things. At what makes humans more likely to kind of, I don't know, send to everyone the idea.
Do you have an example of a bad viral idea? Or a useless viral idea?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like sustainable, like thinking that to save humanity, you need to, I don't know, I'm thinking of maybe a better one. I don't know, any fear-based idea would be, it's viral because fear is super viral. Fear makes us talk about some ideas and share them. And by no means all ideas that are using our fear are useful to, I don't know, us better pursuing our own happiness and progressing or something like this. And he says that in the long run, the only way to kind of combat those viral ideas is by progress, is by showing that, oh shit, the useful ideas are actually useful, and remembering that. And he calls those ideas which he specifically says that, it's important that if so the idea that spreads by abusing all the viral things that humans have, all the natural psyche, all the human psyche, it is anti-rational, because what happens, first of all, it abuses the weakness of man, and second of all, it does so,
and women,
yes, of humans, and it does so by basically turning off the creative powers of people. So you can't use your really creativity to think of new ideas, and that's the only way it survives. Because if you would be able to think of new ideas, you would quickly be like, wait, but this one sucks idea and this one is better. So the only way for it in the long run to survive is to make even questioning the idea itself bad, like feel a bit bad. So I don't know, for instance, was
there's like any extremist, like every extremist regime, like dictatorships, where you don't allow criticism. Like democracy has mechanism of criticism.
Yeah.
Hopefully, like
That's what sounds,
yes.
Yeah. yes. So it demolishes creativity, which demolishes criticism. Therefore, you're stagnated and stuck as you are. So I don't know, like at least as I grew up in Russia and Ukraine, like everyone would start itching by the idea of homosexuality. That, well, I cannot be gay. I mean, like, how could I? You know. So everyone could not even question that basis, and they would kind of start. They would feel uncomfortable by even the thought of it. But obviously there is kind of like you can try to criticize the idea and see. But yeah, I mean, maybe homosexuality is, but there's just a bunch of like where you just kind of innate tribal, where you're like, oh, bad. Maybe transsexuality would be bad.
What about the idea of like ghosts or like spirits? That they're spirits to do stuff.
I mean, it appeals to supernatural, and
Yeah.
it's nice because it like also says, oh, there is something higher than humans. But I mean, it's viral to a certain extent. Like,
And not so much anymore. Like it gets less.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. You wouldn't feel bad by like thinking of maybe there are no ghosts. I mean, what is a good example?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Like those were some good examples, I think. And
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so is that the like anything more in the evolution part?
Yeah, I think that would be kind of. Yeah, that would be mostly summing it up, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, it's not that much.
Okay.
There is way more in the book, like.
Yeah, of course.
This
is a maybe like 3-hour podcast now or whatever, like maybe a bit more. So we definitely didn't went through all the book.
Yeah, we went only through Fabric of Reality mostly. We can, I mean, like Beginning of Infinity. I'm not overviewing it now. I mean, it argues for progress most of the time. It defends how sustainability and trying to preserve one's resources is actually not the way, but you want to always create and you want to always do more stuff. So let me think of like one example, like just solution to global warming wouldn't be by trying to stop humans in producing more things and kind of, but it would be by trying to create knowledge of some technology which would take out carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and so on. Like that would be one of the main ideas that would argue for. Like it says that we never want to kind of sustain our way we are right now.
We always want to progress.
Yeah, we want to progress. We want to solve problems. Like what exactly do you want to sustain? You want to sustain mortality, child labor, slavery, famine that is present in big parts of the world right now. Like you think that's a great life? Do you think mortality is fucking great? Like I think that's ridiculous. We're still mortal. Like, and like it's all thanks to anti-rational memes.
Working on it.
Yeah, working on it. Yes. We'll come back to it in the decades. Yeah. So all those are problems. All those don't seem great to me, at least. Like at least just famine, if you are really think being mortal is important. Suffering of people doesn't make a lot of sense. Wars don't make a lot of sense. The only way to solve these are problems, and the only way to solve them is to double down on progress, double down on creating knowledge, on science, which is our best way to create knowledge, and to try to solve them. So you want to accelerate, and
Nice.
Yeah, and maybe there is the last small note maybe on politics.
Let's go.
Okay, a quick one on politics would be that. So you want, again, we've seen with knowledge, you want to create a means of error correction. You want to test theories and criticize them. So what would be, so in Germany, for instance, right, you have a system. So what would be better, a 2-party system or a multiple-party system?
Should I answer?
Yes.
Was it the question? I think I like the multiple-party system in Germany more. Like the thing is, I know it, of course, also more, but if I compare it to like America, where I know there's like a big divide on like, you can't choose something in between. Like you can't, like you have to subscribe to one of the two. You can't be like, yes, I'm like in this I agree with them, in this I agree with them. Like, of course, in Germany it's also not the case. Like they're also like,
it's not perfect, but it's at least better.
Yes, exactly. It's at least better. Yes.
Yeah. Well, he would say you're wrong.
Okay.
So The problem with multi-party system is that you don't really test the theories that everyone has, and you can't improve upon, and you don't really have the real stakes for the parties. So with two-party system, if one of the other, if let's say let's say I like the red party, you like the blue party. If let's say we vote and the red party wins, blue party loses its all power. Like red party now decides what is going to happen in the country, what bills will be passed, and so on. That is important to know, because now they can run their, so they have some theories of, let's say we have some problem and red party says X, you say blue party says Y. What happens in multi-party system is compromise. And compromise is actually super bad. Yes.
I see. It's a good argument.
Yes. Compromise is super bad because compromise is, okay, I think the best option to do is X. You think the best option is Y. And with compromise is like, well, we can't do X or Y, so let's do Z. And it's like a middle ground, which no one ever thought in the first place was a good idea.
But is compromise so bad all the time? Like, sometimes maybe it might be good. Like, it's also an experiment. Like, it's not that...
No, but the compromise is an idea that no one chose in the first place.
Yes, I see.
No one thought it was the best solution to go for Z in the first place. Everyone thought of X and Y. So in multi-party system, first of all, okay, we do Z, sure. When we run Z and it doesn't work, who gets to blame?
Like everybody can blame the other one.
Yeah, well, of course Z doesn't fucking work because it was supposed to be X and we said it all along. And you would be like, no, it was Y, of course. So yeah, this happens basically. And then there is no one to blame. So no one learns anything. Everyone just retracts back to their old position. But moreover, if I do poorly, if let's say our idea doesn't really work, there's no real lose of power I get in multi-party system. And what is important is that in multi-party system, the third largest party becomes the kingmakers. Because usually no single one party would make the majority. But so the third party, the third largest, so let's say the first two, they have some disagreement, which they usually would. And the third one is like, okay, I decide who's going to be the majority. So guys, come on. What do
you give me?
What do you give me? Yes, exactly. And it's funny how in Germany, it's like the biggest example where the party that was the largest, and David talks about it, like their representative or the main guy of the party held a very high position. And even though like only a small minority of people will vote for him, and usually the big parties get that position. So he was always getting a very important position in the government somehow, while being only the third party.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that happen? And now it's the Greens. They're kind of the third largest party, and they are basically the kingmakers. They decide what's gonna really happen.
Okay, I see their argument.
Yeah, and that's why actually US is super good, because there are two parties. But I really see the point of like division and so on.
Yeah.
But it allows better theories to be tested. So for instance, I lose. So Trump has not won yet, but with his potential assassination, he'll definitely win. I think now, if he doesn't get assassinated once more. Okay. And I think, so what would happen is that blue Democrats would lose entirely power for the country, and Republicans would kind of decide what will happen. Republicans would run as a system, would run their experiments, their theories for 4 years, and then people will have to go and vote again and decide, well, what do we do next? So they'll look at, okay, Republicans have tested their theories, what actually happened? They actually did the X that Republicans wanted and not the compromise, and there's only them to blame. There's not to say, oh, well, Democrats were so bad. No, you had the majority. You decided what would happen.
The problem is the system is so messy. Like, you don't know if it really was that. You can also say, like, yeah, well, this year it was like this year, like there was the Ukraine war. This year there was COVID. This year there was that. This year there was this. So like, our theories would have worked, but like we did the best out of this. Like, if they were in power, it would be even worse.
Yeah,
like,
even worse.
Yes, exactly. So like, it's not perfect. Like it's not like this is maybe nice, like idealized theory, but like it's not.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I wouldn't subscribe that this is like because the best would be to have like an A/B test. Like, you have one country here, one country there, and like
but
and
you
like,
can't.
oh, if no, like that's Man, that's the idea of free private cities I was telling you about.
Ah, come on! I know, of course, I agree with it. I'm like
So
fully
it's like
fucking on.
you can just move to the country
Yes.
where you want to, and then you see, and you see like, oh, well, Mark, you live over there, and like it's going a bit better for you. Like
Yeah.
I think I was a wrong guess, so I can move to your country or
Yeah,
something.
and that's kind of what states are in US. The states themselves, they kind of compete between each other, and they try different things, and some works better than others. So that also is super useful for states, because that is for United States, because that is the creation of knowledge.
This
You're trying out.
similar we also have in Germany, by the way.
Yeah?
Yes, with states.
Huh.
Yes.
Are they that prevalent as in US?
I don't know how prevalent they are in US, but like the states, they also have like a lot of power. Like for example, like schools and stuff, they're like all
that's
organized by the states.
Okay,
Like
some
it's-
power.
but it's also like a bit shit, because like that way it's like it's not that organized. Like it's not that like there are many differences, and like for example, the school diploma in like Bavaria is something else than the school diploma in like Berlin or something. Like Bavaria is by far the best one. Like
Okay.
so
Let's go Bavaria.
but or I don't know, like it's definitely one of the best ones. So yeah, there are some problems with that. But I also see, like, I think they put it because of like after war, so there's not like one centralized hub of power like so the like the leadership doesn't have too much power over everything.
But I would say it's in general politics, at least as I see it, taking outside the David part, it's just they should just not interrupt the businesses doing their work and the capitalism doing. Just like leave the capitalism alone. Don't really try to do a lot. Like I don't put on government the responsibility of actually doing the progress, of actually doing the science. I'm like, just don't really interfere with people, with businesses, with labs that actually do the work.
It's so easy said. Like it's so like many things sound so perfect when you say when you say them. Like not you, but like like many theories make so much sense, but like in real life, like the world is so much more messy, and like there can be like cartels. I don't know. Is it
Cartels.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. Or like monopolies.
Yes.
Exactly. Like monopolies. That like I have the monopoly on something. I suppress all my competitors. I charge super high prices. And, it's just pure capitalism. It's super. It's super good. Like.
Yeah. This is a anarchist/libertarian debate. We can take it one time, because I'm also like a bit researching it now.
But I think we should definitely research, because like we're not. Like, actually, we're probably not knowledgeable enough to talk about this right now on this podcast.
We're knowledgeable enough to make guesses, because everyone can make guesses. But But like, I have seen some arguments for why it's first of all possible to shift a natural monopoly. Like Standard Oil was a natural monopoly. The government did not intervene, and it stopped being a natural monopoly. Like even when it was like breaking down by the government, it like was still pretty much a Standard Oil monopoly. But it was taken down by Shell and others, I think. So I'm not sure, I need to study it. There seems to be quite good arguments for anarcho-capitalism, or at least minarchy. Like I definitely subscribe to minarchy, which is like...
What is minarchy?
Basically, government doesn't intervene into anything but protection of rights. So police, army, and courts. So police for internal, right? That if you punch me, you know, it's against the law to punch me, then it's then you should have some repercussions. An army, so other countries would intervene with you, and court just to solve any problem we can have. And no economic intervention and so on. On economic intervention, I can talk, but other time, definitely.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like, I love the idea of free private cities.
I love it.
So the idea of, I didn't explain it properly. Like, so the idea is essentially that there are different cities, and those are like companies. So like you're not like you're a customer of the state you live in, and they give you a contract, and they're like, okay, we have like we offer protection of your rights, health insurance, like childcare, like this, and this, and this, and it costs like this amount per year. And then you can opt in, and then you can live in the city if you pay the contract. And if they don't deliver, you can sue them, or you can go to another, you stop being their customer. So they're really responsible to do what they say.
But why would entire city be responsible for all those childcare, health insurance?
No, but you don't have to.
Maybe there is a city where it's we're just making sure
nobody breaks into your house.
Yeah, that's it.
And nobody kills you.
There's just some. Okay, there is a constitution. There are the rights you have. We just make sure no one breaks the law. Everything else is on business.
Yes.
You want to have insurance, you can have it. If you don't want to, you don't have to have it.
Yes, and it sounds super cool and stuff, but it also could create so crazy divides. Then you have this one city going rogue, with it's all free capitalism, blah, blah, blah. And then
but what's the problem in it? If people are free individuals, they can choose whether they want to participate in such cities or not.
Okay, problem could be if one city starts attacking another, war.
No, but that's against the law.
You should have probably a city pact that, all cities team up against the city that attacks.
But it's also it's also very
a defensive contract between cities.
It's bad incentives for either city. So we're not gonna. But it's unprofitable to do wars. If the city really cares and it's so why would it attack others? It's just not.
For example, it's really profitable to have another city with super low paid people that don't even manage to make enough money to even have the chance to live in your city, to have them work for you, which makes you even richer, which keeps them even poorer, which gives them zero chance of getting up into your city because they can't pay. But to survive, they have to work for you for a super minimum wage.
But I would say just competition will come. Some other city would be okay,
we'll give you a bit better.
Yeah, we'll give you better. Just go work for us.
That's possible. I would like to have somebody here that is actually arguing against it, because I also love the idea. But I sometimes I argue with people and they were saw some problems, and I also saw them.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, but that's the just to I think to end and ending it up, the point of rationality is about staying humble, knowing that you can make mistakes, trying to argue your best. Don't let ideas become the holders of you. You hold the ideas. Just try to equally weigh ideas. Well, not weigh because there's a long story why not to say weigh the ideas. But let them play out. Let them attack each other. And you just decide which one is the strongest or the least weakest. Treat your mind like a coliseum, and let the reason be the judge of your life.